Under the scorching sun, the martial arts hall of the Marquis Manor was quite lively. In the shade of the winding hall, there was a row of armchairs. The young sirs of Marquis Gu's manor were presently sitting in the hall. From time to time, they would whisper to each other and let out a few laughs. Their eyes were focused on the courtyard that was completely uncovered. In the wide courtyard, 2 rows of weapon racks were filled with swords and staves. On the ground, there was a short and dark figure. In the middle of the courtyard, 2 figures, one tall, one short, were currently bathing in the scorching sunlight. Your lower leg needs to remain straight. Gu Hanmo's expression remained cold and did not reveal any emotions. Raising a hand, he used a stick to tap Yufu's leg. The hot sun did not seem to have any effect on him. Not even a drop of sweat appeared on his body. He just paced around in circles while observing Yufu. Yufu was currently in the horse stance. Her little face was bright red from the sun, and large beads of sweat were dripping from her forehead. When Gu Hanmo tapped her leg, she immediately tightened her leg, her light mauve pants becoming wrinkled. This was for the sake of teaching her martial arts. Gu Huijiang specifically ordered a few sets of clothes. The top and bottom were both cool and easy to move in. Drip. Sweat had completely soaked the clothes, and Yufu pitifully looked up, staring at Gu Hanmo. Unfortunately, it was Gu Hanmo. If it was any of the 5 other brothers, it was likely that they would immediately become reluctant to have her continue training. It was for this reason that there were no objections when Gu Hanmo was chosen to instruct Yufu. Third brother, taking the horse stance in the sun is too much suffering for Yufu. Gu Yi was unable to hold back and spoke up. A spark of hope was suddenly lit in Yufu's heart, but she then heard him continue. Wouldn't it be better to have her do it in the hall? Yufu, that's true. After all, Yufu is a girl. If her skin became dark from the sun, she won't be able to get married. Ah! Yaolan went forward to support her, but how could she support her? Yufu's entire body was numb. Since childhood, she had never experienced such suffering. If there was nobody to support her, she might have collapsed to the ground. Gu Hanmo, however, had no intention of showing any pity or love for girls. Standing behind her, he was like an icy mountain. He stared at her and did not allow her to escape. Eldest young sir, Lord Marquis ordered me to deliver a watermelon that has just been chilled. Just as Yufu was slowly inching toward the hall, they suddenly saw Qi Zhou arrive with a group of people carrying a watermelon. The watermelon was in exceptional condition. It was large and round, and its exterior was a brilliant green with visible black stripes. It even had some beads of water on it. It was immediately evident that it had been placed in a cold storage area to cool it. Only that would cause water to bead like that on the surface. When Yufu saw this watermelon, she became even more paralyzed. Then bring it over. Gu Shubai pretended to not notice her greedy expression and had Qi Zhou bring it over to be cut open. Qi Zhou snuck a look in Yufu's direction and found it hard to suppress a smile. With that, he picked up the flat blade used to cut the watermelon. Eldest brother had not called her to eat the watermelon. Yufu wishfully thought about it and could not stop herself from swallowing some saliva. Yufu. Like a sound belonging to nature, it was a rather low voice. Yufu rapidly raised her head and saw Gu Xiang and Gu Yi rocking back and forth. Gu Shubai's face also had a slight smile. We will stop training for today. Quickly come and eat. With Gu Shubai having spoken, not even Gu Hanmo could stop her. Yufu quickly trotted over. As for Lian Zhu and Lian Bai, both were staring in a daze. Wasn't Yufu just struggling to even move? How could she run so quickly just now? Little Yufu, weren't you unable to walk earlier? How is it that you're now able to run? Gu Yi mocked her but still hurriedly handed her a slice of watermelon, allowing her to be the first to eat. Yu Fu received it and took a bite. The coolness permeated her core, and she shot a bit of a glare at him. It was originally an even greater glare, but this was reduced by the cool watermelon. Little Yu Fu, you will need to remember in the future not to flaunt your few skills in front of a master. We are all people who have been trained like this from childhood. Whether you are truly unable to move or not is something that we can see at a glance. Everyone present knew that she was pretending. It could be seen that her pitiful appearance really did make him feel reluctant to have her continue training. I know that the head general and elder brothers are doing this for my health. In the future, I will definitely train properly and not slack off. Yao Lan came over with a handkerchief to wipe her hands. Yu Fu moved her hand, and a silver flower appeared in the palm of her hand. It turned out that they were the poisonous needles that she often used. Little Yu Fu, what did you bring those things out for? Gu Yi exaggeratedly carried the watermelon away, fearing that she might accidentally poison the watermelon. Yu Fu said, Master once said that he would teach me some cultivation once I got a bit older. Like this, my poisonous needles will be even more effective and will be able to fly out like darts. Eldest brother, do you think I will be able to do it? This sort of thinking was quite good. Gu Shubai carefully looked at her poisonous needles and pulled one out from between her fingers. With a flick of his fingers, he sent it flying. Nobody could clearly see where it had flown. The male servants ran over to the neighboring wing and found the needle stuck in a door. It's here. Everyone put down their watermelon and ran over to take a look. Sure enough, they found the silver needle stabbed into the wooden door of the wing. It was a full inch deep. Yu Fu reached out to pull it out, but no matter how hard she tried, she could not pull it out. In the end, the silver needle was only pulled out by a male servant by covering it in a handkerchief and pulling with all of his might. Eldest brother, teach me that one. If I can learn this, I will also be able to help in the fighting if something happens. She gently tugged at the hem of Gu Shubai's clothes and seemed to be especially hopeful. Gu Xiang and Gu Yi's eyes were already glowing from this sight. Eldest brother really is amazing. When did you secretly learn this? You didn't even teach us. No good, no good, you need to teach us too. Gu Shubai had been thoroughly surrounded and helplessly looked at Yu Fu. Who told you to fight? You are a young miss of Marquis Gu's manor. Nobody is worthy of having you personally take action. Who do you want to beat up? Eldest brother will just help you out. There's also second brother. Gu Jiugu took a step forward and looked at Gu Shubai with a forced smile. Gu Hanamo faintly smiled. He did not speak, but his eyes expressed his views. Gu Wenqing nodded to him. It's naturally the same with fourth brother. There's also us. If anyone dares to bully Yu Fu, there's no need for our older brothers to take action. We will beat them silly first. Gu Xiang and Gu Yi gestured with their young fists filled with ill will and spoke up, refusing to be left out. Sure enough, training with Gu Hanamo for half a month saw Yu Fu was able to move her body quite a bit more freely. Third young sir teaches very well. Young Miss complexion is quite a bit better now. While Lian Zhu was styling her hair in the mirror, she saw that her cheeks were rosy. They resembled red plum blossoms blooming in a snowy field. Really? Yu Fu happily stood up and examined her face in the mirror. Her hair had become a little longer, and Lian Zhu had tied it into 2 hoops. The 2 rings of hair hung by her ears, giving her a very cute appearance. That's right, and young Miss seems to have grown a little taller. Lian Bai stood to the side and watched, waving to Yao Lan. Yao Lan, come and compare with the young Miss. Take a look. Hasn't the young Miss grown a little taller? Yao Lan and Yu Fu lined up back to back, and everyone looked carefully. They could not help but let out a cheer. Enland clapped and said, "Sure enough, young Miss has grown taller. Previously, you and Yao Lan were roughly the same height. Now, you are this much taller." Saying this, she used her thumb and index finger to gesture a small gap. Yu Fu herself was also very happy. "It must be the bird nest and other supplements that the head general sent me. Taking all of them must have made me grow taller. Yao Lan, do you want to grow more quickly too? How about you take them with me next time?" Yao Lan shook her head. Just as she was about to say that she did not think that she was short, she suddenly saw something drip down from inside Yu Fu's nose. Young Miss, Yu Fu herself had not yet noticed anything, exuberantly saying, "I am going to tell head general and eldest brother that I've grown taller." Saying this, she began to run out with everyone following behind her, as drops of blood dripped with every step. Young Miss. Lian Zhu's face immediately turned pale with fear, as she rushed forward to stop Yu Fu. Only then did she realize that there were drops of blood on her face. Quickly go and send for an imperial physician." Imperial physician Sun and the members of Marquis Gu's manor gathered in the western wing. They saw a small piece of cloth stuffed into Yu Fu's nose and Yu Fu lying on a divan with her head tilted back. Seeing that Gu Huaijiang was alarmed, she wanted to get up to greet him, but she was quickly pushed back down by Gu Huaijiang. "Don't move." He glanced around the room at the maidservants. What exactly happened here? Yu Fu was perfectly fine, so how did she end up getting hurt? Lian Zhu's face was bright red. Who knew if it was a result of nervousness or shame, as she stepped forward and replied in an awkward fashion. "It's like this. Young Miss Yu Fu said that she wanted to go and look for Lord Marquis. As she ran, she began bleeding until blood completely covered her face. We servants were so scared that we directly sent for an imperial physician. It was only after this that we found, Imperial physician Sun let out a chuckle. Found out that young Miss Yu Fu merely had a nosebleed and was not hurt, right?" Lian Zhu nodded, her face extremely red. Only then did everyone relax. It turned out that it was a false alarm. Though a nosebleed isn't anything serious, since Imperial physician Sun has come, how about carefully checking Yu Fu's pulse? Gu Shubai moved to the side, and Imperial physician Sun agreed, walked over to the divan. "Young Miss Yu Fu, have you ever examined your own pulse?" Yu Fu nodded, "I have. I am quite well, and there are no problems. I have been training with third brother these past few days, and my body has gotten a little stronger. Why would I suddenly have a nosebleed?" This was her first time ever having a nosebleed. Ever since the previous incident when Yu Fu had fallen into the water, Imperial physician Sun had a bit of an understanding of Yu Fu's situation, and he immediately nodded. After all, young Miss does not have a background in medicine. It's inevitable that there are things that you do not know. Furthermore, you previously mentioned that you mainly ate the vegetables and wild game while in Immortals Valley. Those things are light and mild and naturally will not cause nosebleeds. Gu Shubai heard those words and seemed to have thought of something, causing the corner of his lips to twitch. The others, however, were still confused. Imperial physician Sun, what exactly is wrong with Yu Fu? Just say it straight. It was inevitable that Gu Huaijiang would be worried, and he asked directly. Imperial physician Sun turned his head and replying to Lord Marquis, "It's not a serious problem. May I ask if young Miss ate a large amount of supplements today?" Young Miss said that she trained in martial arts today. Taking too many supplements on such a day left her small body unable to endure it. Moreover, her body absorbed the supplements even better with her having trained in martial arts. The nosebleed is simply resulting from this. In the end, Imperial physician Sun's explanation was that she had taken too many supplements. Gu Huaijiang frowned, how could that be? It was Lord Liu and Lord Li from court who told this marquis. They said that their daughters eat bird nest and eat gelatin every day as supplements. Why have I never heard them say anything about their daughters having nosebleeds? Imperial physician Sun did not know whether to laugh or cry. Amongst military men, Gu Huaijiang could already be considered a scholarly general and was not that crude and rash. But when it came to the delicate task of raising a daughter, he really was rash beyond reason. Lord Marquis, please allow this subordinate official to speak bluntly. For smaller families, they might have their daughters eat 2 tails of bird nest on a good day, but what about your manor? It's possible that even 1 pound would be considered a small amount. You can't force supplements into her like this. Imperial physician Sun felt righteously indignant for a while, then said, "You truly are too clueless on how to raise a daughter. If you don't know how to raise one, just let young Miss Yu Fu come to stay at my manor for a few days. I guarantee that I can adjust things so that she is in perfect condition." Hey, what are you doing? Before Imperial physician could finish speaking, Gu Jiugu gave a look, and the servants outside immediately carried Imperial physician Sun out. Gu Shubai laughed and glanced at him. To actually dare to snatch a daughter away from father, if he did not leave now, he would not be able to leave. Only Imperial physician Sun would able to say such a thing, actually thinking of bringing Yu Fu to his manor. Who could possibly be blind to his intentions? Isn't it just to get close to Yu Fu and ask her more about the god of medicine? The two quietly chatted, while Gu Huaijiang had walked over to Yu Fu with an apologetic look on his face. He had already worked very hard to learn about how the other officials were raising their daughters. Who knew that he would still make a mistake? "General, I'm fine. Auntie Li said that all young children have nosebleeds. Eldest brother, what do you think?" She looked past Gu Huaijiang's shoulder to look at Gu Shubai. Gu Shubai's brow slightly raised, but how could he possibly be willing to admit such a thing in front of her? This would just ruin his image for nothing. Gu Jiugu saw that he did not respond, thus he also remained silent. This was nothing honorable. Who would willingly say such a thing? Right, Gu Xiang would often have nosebleeds when he was young. Each time, 2 balls of rough paper would be stuffed into his nostrils. That's why his nostrils are so large. Gui proudly beat his chest and cheerfully sneered in Gu Xiang's direction. Having been described as having large nostrils, Gu Xiang's face quickly turned red, as he grabbed Gu Yi by the neck. "You traitorous little shit of a brother, we were born the same. If my nostrils are large, doesn't that mean that your nostrils are also large?" As a result of the silly event stemming from the nosebleed, Gu Huaijiang decided to have Yu Fu stop training in martial arts. He specifically called everyone together at dinner to discuss what Yu Fu should learn next. "Ever since last time, when everyone found out about your nosebleed, nobody has dared to randomly come up with any ideas. I have already instructed Aunt Li to calculate how much supplement to give you. Aunt Li also said that learning embroidery is a good idea. Yu Fu, what do you think?" Gu Huaijiang felt that he was lacking in experience, thus he wanted to hear more about what others thought when it came to things relating to Yu Fu. Yu Fu said, "Why does General want me to learn embroidery so much? Is it in hopes that I will have something to stave off boredom while in my bedroom, or is it in hopes that I can make a name for myself in the capital with embroidery? Naturally, I hope that it would allow you to amuse yourself. Aside from that, you can also cultivate yourself. It will also ensure that you do not get infected by the crudeness of martial arts practitioners without a head wife here to take care of you." Yu Fu began to giggle. "Then there's no need to learn this. I already learned it when I was young. Even now, I can mostly remember it. It's just that I'm not so skilled as to make anything exquisite. When I get a chance, how about I sew a coin pouch for General to see?" Yu Fu knew how to sew coin pouches. A look of understanding and expectation appeared in the eyes of the father and sons present. No wonder Yu Fu uses poison needles and not something like a poison sword or poison dagger. It turns out that it has its origins in embroidery. Gu Yi covered his mouth and secretly laughed, continuing, "Then if not embroidery, what will you learn?" Yu Fu thought quickly. Her eyes were as clear as water, allowing one to see to the very depths just at a glance. She said, "I want to read books and study. Head General does not want me to continue learning martial arts. How about I study books? Elder brothers know martial arts and will all eventually head onto the battlefield to help Head General. I don't know how to do anything, but being learned and well-reasoned will ensure that Head General does not lose face. What do you think?" "That's great." "Of course, that's great." Gu Huaijiang was very satisfied with her choice. "I have always taught your brothers that they cannot only train in martial arts while neglecting books. When on the battlefield as the general, one cannot only have reckless courage. More important than that is to have mastery over military tactics. You wanting to read is a good thing. Although Eastern Ling places an emphasis on girls learning the 5 arts, you are a young miss of my Marquis Gu's manor. You can learn whatever it is you wish. We'll see who dares to interfere." This was said in a rather domineering fashion, but Yu Fu's heart felt very warm and fuzzy. "Thank you, Head General." Upon seeing the scenery at the river the last time we went, Yu Fu described it as a beautiful city with hundreds of thousands of families. It was at that moment that I knew that Yu Fu had read some books before. Who knew that she would end up choosing this? Once Gu Jiugu said this, Gu Xiang and Gu Yi hastily nodded and said, "That's right, it was Yu Fu who said it." Second brother had even said that Yu Fu's level was on a higher level than us. This scared me into reading a great many books after coming back. Gu Shubai actually had no clue that this had happened. Looking at Yu Fu's innocent expression, a faint feeling of jealousy appeared in his heart. Did she not say that she liked eldest brother the most? Why was it that Gu Jiugu and the others knew about this, yet he had been kept in the dark? Since you have already read some books, things will be even easier to handle. There is a study in the southwest corner of the manor called Guangsha Study. There are quite a few of the Gu family's children studying there. Wenqing, Gu Xiang, and Gu Yi are also there. You can go with them. The 3 younger ones were still studying, and the 3 older ones previously studied there. Now, they had already finished their studies and left. Really? That's great. This joyous cry did not come from Yu Fu. Instead, it had come from Gu Yi. With a clap of his hands, he stood up from his seat. With Yu Fu accompanying him in his studies, this had become an extremely joyous matter. Gu Huaijiang rolled his eyes at him, his stare forcing him obediently back into his seat. Only then did he say, "You and Gu Xiang frequently skip class. Don't think that father does not know. The teachers in the study are afraid to tell me after taking your weak constitution into consideration, but your constitution is no longer as weak as it was before. If you dare to casually skip class again, watch out." If others said this sort of thing, it might just be an empty threat. However, Gu Yi knew that this was not an empty threat. Thinking back to the feeling of the cane hitting his butt, his shoulders shuddered, and he sat very obediently. Yes, son does not dare do it again. Studying together with Yu Fu, who would skip class, after a couple days, when Gu Huaijiang had instructed people to inform the teachers in Guangsha Study, Yu Fu would be allowed to officially begin her studies. Aunt Li, Lian Zhu, Lian Bai, and the rest of their group woke up early in the morning to prepare books and ink for Yu Fu. They wrapped them up in a new cloth for Yalan to carry when it was time. When Yu Fu woke up, they hastily took care of helping her change and brush her hair. They were worried that it would not be good if she was late on her first day. "Young miss, how about tying your hair up into 2 rings again?" Since you will be studying, you are now a maturing child. Hair buns is inevitably going to have a childish aura. I heard that Lin Fengmiao, Teacher Lin, dislikes young children the most. Yu Fu was in a daze and barely awake before being dragged out of bed by Lian Zhu's group to wash up. Only after this was she fully awake. What? There are actually people who dislike young children. Yu Fu clicked her tongue. How adorable are young children. I only like young children, ones this tall. As she spoke, she sat in front of the makeup mirror and gestured with her hand. The height that she described was little taller than the chair. Lian Bai burst out laughing. Someone this tall would be 3 years of age at most. It turns out that young miss likes 3-year-old little kids. Little kids. Yu Fu thought for a bit, then realized that the young children being spoken of were not those around 2 or 3 years old. Instead, it was her. Are you saying that Teacher Lin in Guangsha study will dislike me? She was a little uneasy, looking up at Lian Zhu, and the latter consoled her. Young miss, don't worry. All of the old scholars are like this. This one also has a huge reputation. Only like this could he come and teach in Marquis Gu's manner. His temper is also greater than others by a bit. Back when the 5th and 6th young sirs went to study, I heard that Teacher Lin took a look at them and sneered, bunch of childish brats. He then foisted the two on some other teacher. Aside from this Teacher Lin, who has a bad temper, does Guangsha study have any other teachers? There are. Lian Zhu said, I heard the young sirs mention that there are another 2 younger teachers. Because they are not as learned as Teacher Lin, they are only there to serve as assistants. Whenever there are any young students or naughty students, Teacher Lin would remain aloof and not want to personally instruct them. He would simply leave them to be instructed by the other 2. Yu Fu stuck her tongue out. Seeing Yao Lan walk over with a brand new dress embroidered with peach blossoms and a horse skirt, she quickly waved her hands. Not this one, it's too flowery. Since the old teacher is aloof, choose one that is more plain. Fourth brother, have you finished preparing? First thing in the morning, a commotion stirred Gu Wenqing's yard. This frightened the servant Dreamy into thinking that something had happened. Fire! Is it a fire? Running out while still half asleep and in his sleeping clothes, Dreamy began to shout in the yard. You loggerhead! With a smack, his head was given a fierce strike. Only then did he fully wake up. He then saw Gu Xiang and Gu Yi standing before him in clean clothes. This left him feeling a little confused for a brief moment. 5th young sir, 6th young sir, why have you 2 come so early? We must go study today. It's natural that we would need to get up a little earlier. Where's 4th brother? Is 4th brother still sleeping? Gu Yi did not wait for him to reply and went to push open the door. Gu Wenqing just happened to open the door at the same time. With you guys causing such a ruckus, how could I keep sleeping? I woke up long ago. Moving to the side, he gestured for them to enter. It's rare that you 2 would be so early. Come in and have some tea. Dreamy hastily rushed over to help Gu Wenqing get washed up, then brought out breakfast. Let's not eat. Bring the breakfast over to the western wing. Let's go and eat with Yu Fu. How about it? Gu Yi was a flexible person, closing the lid on the food that he had just received from Dreamy. Gu Xiang also said, right, today is the first time that she will be studying with us. Let's go over a little earlier to see her. After saying this, he did not wait for Gu Wenqing to state his opinion, dragging him in the direction of the western wing. To the 2 of them, Gu Wenqing was the older brother that was closest to them in age. He was also the one with the most agreeable temper. They were not worried that he would get mad. Gu Wenqing was dragged along by the 2 of them and could only try to compromise. All right, if we're going, let's just go. Let's walk properly and not drag each other around. Smoothing out the sleeve that had been wrinkled from being dragged along, he moved to the front and had Dreamy carry the food boxes. Arriving at the western wing, Yu-Fu had just finished getting ready and was about to eat breakfast. Fourth brother, fifth brother, sixth brother, you guys came. Upon seeing them, Yu-Fu leaped up from her chair and cheerfully welcomed them. They saw that her hair was tied up into 2 little rings, and there were only 2 small pearl ornaments in her hair. She wore a plain dress with lotuses and green leaves. She looked as nimble as a fairy. I was thinking of telling you that Teacher Lin is strict and fastidious and that you should dress a little more plainly. Who knew that you would dress so fittingly? Gu Wenqing nodded his head in satisfaction, as Dreamy came up from behind him and placed their breakfast on the table. Yu-Fu said with a smile, "It was Auntie Li and Sister Lian Zhu who took care of dressing me, but is Teacher Lin really that scary?" "It's not just any normal degree of scariness." Gu Yi put on a fiendish expression, scaring Yu-Fu into hiding behind Gu Wenqing. He, on the other hand, began to laugh. "All right, sixth brother, stop frightening Yu-Fu. In truth, Teacher Lin is just strict with his teaching and a little strict as a person. He is very knowledgeable on many things. You will definitely benefit from studying at Guangsha Study." The 4 sat down at the table and began to eat while chatting about Teacher Lin. Yu-Fu also managed to get a grasp on his disposition. After setting out, they first had to pass through the front of the manor. The 4 entered to bid farewell to Gu Huaijiang and found that both Gu Shubai and Gu Jiugu were present. For once, Gu Hanemo was not out training with a sword. Yu-Fu's heart felt warm. She thought that they had all come because it was her first day of studying, thus they were all here just to send her off. "Go on, you 3 are the older brothers. You must take good care of Yu-Fu. Do you hear me?" Gu Huaijiang laughed with a doting love. He was very satisfied to see Yu-Fu dressed appropriately. Both her manner and expression were dignified. She was Gu Huaijiang's daughter. Though she was not related by blood, she was not at all worse than any other family's young miss. Leaving the main hall, they headed toward the southwest corner of the manor. Along the way, there were few buildings but many trees. There were quite a few of these verdant pillars, and it was quite cool even in the summer. After walking for a long time, they saw a simple and short wall rise from the ground. Even further ahead, they saw the words Guangsha Study. Though this study was built in Marquis Gu's manor, it's not used by only our family. Instead, the entire clan makes use of it. That's why this place was sectioned off on its own. There is another entrance in the back that connects to the outside that allows for the students to come and go. I will bring you to go and see Teacher Lin. Gu Xiang, Gu Yi, you 2 go to the secretary first. Gu Yi had a look of reluctance, for he also wished to go with Yu-Fu to see Teacher Lin, but when he recalled how many times he had neglected his studies, he would be given quite a scolding by Teacher Lin. It would not be good for him to lose too much face in front of Yu-Fu. "All right, then let's go in. Fourth brother, you need to have Teacher Lin arrange for Yu-Fu to be seated next to us." Saying this, the 2 entered the study hall first. Gu Wenqing then held Yu-Fu's hand and led her toward a room in the back, while Yao Lan followed behind them. "This student greets Teacher Lin." Outside the door, there stood an old man with white hair and wrinkled skin. He looked to be in his 60s or 70s, and he was currently stretching. Seeing Gu Wenqing, a gentle smile appeared on his face. It seemed that he really liked this student. Yu-Fu saw it and internally let out a sigh of relief. Teacher Lin's smile was so warm. How could he possibly be as strict as Gu Xiang and Gu Yi had said? "Wenqing, you came so early once again." "Right, there was that question that you had about Chu Shi Biao. There was the meaning of that one word that I was thinking about." I thought about it for a few days and have already come up with a very reasonable explanation. I will explain it to you. After saying this, he laughed and turned around to give Gu Wenqing an explanation. Teacher, don't rush. It won't be too late to explain when we get into the class. This is my younger sister, Yu Fu. Today is her first time coming to study. I specially brought her to come and greet teacher. Yu Fu walked out from behind Gu Wenqing and bowed in a dignified manner. Copying Gu Wenqing's tone, she said, "This student greets teacher Lin." Good, Lord Marquis already sent someone to inform me. I heard that the young miss likes reading, so let's have teacher Zhou take care of her. Let's start with learning to read. Lin Fengmiao's tone instantly became a bit colder. He had no intention of personally teaching Yu Fu how to read. Instead, he passed her off to someone else. Yu Fu slightly raised her head to look at Gu Wenqing, seemingly to ask how to respond. Gu Wenqing forced a smile and said, "Teacher Zhou is a talented teacher and is a very kind person. It's natural that having him teach is very good, but father's hope was to have teacher Lin personally teach Yu Fu." He had brought out Gu Huaijiang's name. No matter how stubborn Lin Fengmiao was, he had no choice but to give him some face. "Young miss, please raise your head." Yu Fu raised her head. He only glanced at her before immediately covering his eyes and turning away. No good, I truly can't teach this sort of young miss. It would be best to have teacher Zhou take care of her. Teacher Zhou Teacher Lin, what instructions do you have? Not far away, a man in a light-colored robe respectfully bowed and trotted over. In the end, Gu Wenqing was unable to best teacher Lin in a test of will, and Yu Fu was given to teacher Zhou. Seeing him return alone, Gu Xiang and Gu Yi let out heavy sighs and began to complain. I knew that old man Lin has a wicked heart. If he doesn't let Yu Fu come and study with us, what is the point of me coming here? Gu Yi was the first to express his unhappiness and promptly had his mouth covered by Gu Xiang. He looked around. In the class were other students that were around 17 or 18 years of age, and they were all preparing their books and paper to protect themselves from being struck on the back. None of them could afford to pay any attention to what they were doing. He lowered his voice, "You're begging to be hit, aren't you? Is that any way to address teacher? Have you forgotten how many times you were beaten the last time you let something slip in front of father?" With Gu Yi having been fiercely scolded, he copied Yu Fu's expression from when she had performed the horse stance and puffed up his cheeks in a pout. Gu Wenqing said, "Fifth brother is right. We have a military background, but we still must respect our elders and teachers. Moreover, Yu Fu will still be able to study under teacher Zhou. They will be just next door. We will be able to go back together once class is dismissed." Cough cough. One of the students at the table in front of them suddenly coughed very loudly a couple times while preparing their things. Gu Xiang and Gu Yi understood and returned to their own seats, putting on the appearance of reading. Teacher Lin entered the room with a very straight posture and saw that everyone was reading very attentively. Even the often truant Gu Xiang and Gu Yi were reading. He ran his fingers through his beard feeling very satisfied. Wait. He looked more closely, and his beard began to tremble from the anger. A thunderous sound rang out when he slammed his ruler on a desk. Gu Yi, your book is upside down. Stand up. Zhou Xidao led Yu Fu inside and passed by that door. Hearing the laughter come from inside, neither knew what had happened. Young Miss Yu Fu, this room is teacher Lin's classroom. The students are higher-level students, and there are some who are older than your 3 older brothers. Yu Fu nodded, thinking of how Gu Wenqing should be inside. Teacher Zhou, just call me Yu Fu. Since I came to learn from you, I am your student. Where is there any teacher that addresses their student as young miss? Zhou Xidao was stunned. Only after a long stretch of silence did he awkwardly reply, my intelligence is lacking compared to my courtesy. In truth, I am also one of Teacher Lin's students. Even at 30, I could not become a successful candidate in the imperial exam, thus I received his recommendation and came here to teach young children. For young Miss to have been so kind as to accept me as your teacher, I will definitely do my best to teach you. He smiled awkwardly once more, then pointed at a room next to the previous one and said, "This is a smaller classroom. All of the students inside are lower-level students. There are some that are 15 to 16 years old, and there are also 13 to 14-year-olds. They are all a little older than you. Fortunately, all of them are just starting their studies, thus it will be beneficial to study together." Yu Fu thought it over. Earlier, Teacher Lin had mentioned starting from becoming literate, but she was already literate. Should she clarify with Teacher Zhou? Forget it, she would wait until she went in and got an understanding of the situation. This would prevent Teacher Lin from feeling even more dissatisfied with her for being frivolous. Then I will be troubling Teacher Zhou. When Zhou Xidao pushed the door open, a book that had been torn to shreds flew towards his head and grazed by his ear. He was a scholar. Having been given a fright by something akin to a hidden weapon, his expression instantly became stern, and he turned to look at the younger students. The previously rowdy classroom instantly fell silent. Everyone pretended to be reading in earnest, as none were willing to admit that they were the one to throw the book. Zhou Xidao was helpless to do anything about it. Remembering that Yu Fu was still there, he introduced her to everyone. "This is a new student. She is young Miss Yu Fu from Marquis Gu's Manor. She is young. Your usual rowdiness is what it is, but you absolutely must not let her get hurt. Do you understand?" "We understand." The dragged-out voice made it sound like someone reciting a script with a feeling of self-satisfaction. Yu Fu could not help but cover her mouth to hide a smile. The young students poked their heads out from behind their books. Seeing that she was exceptionally pretty and looked even more beautiful with her dimples when she smiled, they all began to rejoice. Zhou Xidai arranged a seat for her next to the window. First, it would provide better lighting, and second, it would also be convenient for Yao Lan to watch over her from the outside. If she needed anything like tea or water, it would be easy to take care of it. He sat at the front and began to look through a cabinet before suddenly turning his head. There were still quite a few notes in here previously. Where did they all go? His gaze suddenly landed on the entrance. The worn book that had nearly hit his head earlier. Were they not the notes that he had personally written? He was both embarrassed and angry. All of the notes have been used up. Which one of you can share with Yu Fu? I will write some more when I get the chance. Just as Yu Fu was about to speak, 4 or 5 books were offered to her from all sides. Use mine. The short and stout child sitting behind her stood up and did his best to extend his hand. He was doing everything possible to try and put his book directly on Yu Fu's desk. His is already torn. You should use mine. The youth sitting in front of her was a little older, and he smugly looked at the stout child. Teacher said that I am learning quite well. I will soon be able to go and learn from Teacher Lin. Either way, I won't be able to make use of these notes. It will be perfect for you to use them. Once these words came out, the room became filled with admiration and envy. Being able to go from this room to studying with Teacher Lin is something that would receive 3 days and 3 nights of praise from one's parents. Those who had originally extended their hands to offer their notes now began to slowly pull back. Only the stout child behind her continued to offer his notes in dissatisfaction. Yu Fu smiled at the youth, then stood up and said, Teacher Zhou, I know how to write. I will write for you to see. Should you find it to be no good, give me some notes then. Is that all right? Very well, write a bit for me to see. Yaolan had already laid out the paper and prepared the brush. She raised the thin Jinhao pen and dipped it in some Huizhou ink. She then smoothly wrote a few words on the piece of paper. Everyone gathered around in curiosity to take a look. The stout boy behind her did his best to read it. If I had a mansion, if I had a mansion with thousands of rooms, it would be a great shelter for all of the scholars of the world. You don't even know this much, yet you have the nerve to try and read it out here. Don't make people laugh so much that their teeth start falling out. Everyone began to mock the stout boy. Only Zhou Xidao picked up the piece of paper to read what was written. Not a single character was wrong, and the handwriting was neat and graceful. It had a carefree and leisurely appearance like water flowing down a mountain. The writing really was a reflection of the writer. I noticed that the name of the school was Guangsha Study and heard the head general say that this was a place for all to learn. All could come regardless of their social status. Thus I thought of Master Du's words and felt that this place had a similar aspiration. Upon hearing this, Zhou Xidao felt even more amazed. Looking at Yu Fu and her childish aura, who could have known that she would be so well read? He said in shock, "Your writing is so good. How could Teacher Lin have you come and learn here? As I see it, you should go and study next door. Teacher Lin has made a mistake in this matter. He has mistaken an uncut jade for a plain rock. Go next door directly." Everyone became frantic upon hearing this. Studying here was so boring, and now they finally had a beautiful young girl in their class. Before they could even get a chance to speak, she was being allowed to go next door. The youth in front of her was dissatisfied and said, "Teacher Zhou, it might be that she only knows this one piece and has fooled you. It would be better if you dictated something for her to write. Only like this can we know her true level." Zhou Xidao thought it over and felt that there was some logic to this, thus he looked at Yu Fu. Yu Fu obediently nodded. "Teacher just needs to dictate." "Teacher Zhou, don't dictate something too easy." These younger students were all exceptionally sharp. They could see that Zhou Xidao felt a little bit afraid of Yu Fu's background, and they were quick to remind him. Zhou Xidao awkwardly said, "Of course, is there any need for you to remind me?" After saying this, he raised his head and thought for a bit before dictating. The water glimmers beautifully on a sunny day, and colors of the scenery are richer in the rain. This was part of a poem that described the beautiful scenery of the West Lake. Yu Fu remembered that ever since arriving in Linen, she had not yet had a chance to go and visit it. For a moment, she was stunned. She muttered this poem to herself multiple times and yearned for the lake scenery. She wondered when would be a good time to have her eldest brother take her to visit. Teacher chose one that's too hard. She doesn't know how to write it. It's like I said, right? We were nearly fooled by her. The youth in front of her began to laugh flippantly, pulling her back to the present. Zhou Xidao's expression became a little ugly. This one may have been too hard. How about a different one? No need, Teacher Zhou. Yu Fu raised her brush. In her small fingers, the thin Jinhao looked very magnificent. Everyone's eyes were focused on her hand. They felt that there was no powder or cosmetic that was as fine as her skin. Compared to her, these youths all had skin that was as rough as an old tree's bark. With the brush raised, she wrote very small characters. The Huizhou ink dispersed a faint smell of pine. Everyone turned their attention to the paper. Though there were many characters in this poem that were hard to write, Yu Fu did not make a single mistake. Now, not a single person dared to say a word about her deceiving them. Good, writing characters so small is one of the hardest things to do. You are merely 12 years old, yet you can already write so well. I truly feel ashamed. I will immediately go and tell Teacher Lin. Yu Fu raised her head and said with a smile, Teacher Zhou, I only know how to write these few words. My knowledge is extremely shallow. You can just teach me to read. If teacher feels that I have improved over the next few days, it won't be too late to present that recommendation." This was an amiable and gentle statement, and Zhou Sidao truly found them pleasant to hear, thus he nodded his head in satisfaction. "All right, have a seat and read DZ Gue. If there's something that you don't understand, just come and ask me." He folded the 2 pieces of paper that Yu Fu had written on and carefully placed it inside his sleeve, treating it as if it was a treasure. The rules for students are the sage's teachings. First, be good to parents and respect elders. Next, be reverent and trustworthy. Also, love everyone and become close with the kind-hearted. The loud sounds of reading rose. Yu Fu copied the students around her and began to read aloud. The DC Gue was something that she had learned to read back when she was 5. Even after such a long time, she was still able to recite it by heart. Thus, her eyes were not focused on the book. Instead, she looked around the classroom at the various students. She found it very entertaining. She was looking at the others, and they were also looking at her. From the teacher to the students, everyone in the classroom was male. Just how rare was it that they now had a beautiful young girl? Of course, they could not stop themselves from taking a few peeks at her. This class was extremely rough until they finally saw Zhou Sidao put down his scroll and take a slight stretch. Everyone began to rub their hands together in anticipation. Whenever teacher Zhou let them take a break, he would do this sequence of actions. They had seen through this long ago. Within 5 seconds, he would definitely say, "All right, everyone, let's rest for a while. Just don't run off too far and don't disrupt Teacher Lin's class." It was always this line that was completely lacking in originality. After Zhou Sidao finished speaking, he picked up his teacup and began to walk out. He was going to get some more tea. Seeing him walk off, all of the younger students stopped holding back and noisily gathered around Yu Fu. Yu Fu was momentarily frightened, shrinking back into a corner. "You're Lord Marquis' daughter?" One person casually asked but was quickly cut off by another person. "I know her. She is not Lord Marquis' daughter. Apparently she was brought back from the battlefield on the border." "Did you not hear her refer to Lord Marquis as head general?" Only members of the Gu family army would refer to him as head general. Everyone else was more accustomed with referring to him by his noble title, Lord Marquis. "So she isn't a proper young miss. Who was it that tied your hair? It's quite pretty." When everyone heard that she was not Gu Huaijiang's daughter, their attitudes became a little less respectful. One person reached out to feel her hair and bumped into a small pearl. Yu Fu was given a fright and dodged back, and the small pearl was knocked onto the ground. All of the hair held up by the pearl followed it and fell in front of Yu Fu's eyes. It was tied up by Sister Lian Zhu. Yu Fu grimaced, seeing her hair cover her field of vision. She knew that her recently brushed hair had been messed up, and a hint of misery appeared in her voice. The one that had reached out to feel her hair had merely thought that she was cute. He never thought that he would mess up her hair, complaining, "The hairstyle was indeed quite beautiful, but it isn't at all sturdy. It fell apart with just a bump." Before Yu Fu could even speak, Yaolan had already begun screaming outside the window. "You actually dare to bully our young miss? Quickly apologize." Next door, Teacher Lin's class also happened to be taking a break. Gu Wenqing's group of 3 hastily came over and wanted to see Yu Fu's situation. Who knew that while they were still in the hall, they would hear this loud shout? Who is it that ate a bravery pill and dared to bully Yu Fu? Gu Yi was the one with the least self-control. With a shout, he launched into a sprint, then threw a kick at the door. Bang! The door fell with that crashing sound. Those that were gathered around Yu Fu were given a fright and hastily looked toward the door. The three brothers entered and saw the group gathered in a circle with Yu Fu in the middle. A bit of her adorable and charming hair had been undone. Loose hair had fallen to cover her eyes, and she had a look of confusion on her face. In the eyes of the three, this expression made it clear that she had been bullied. Speak, who was it that dared to make her hair like this? The usually calm Gu Wenqing now had an intense expression. He quickly walked forward and pushed the group aside, pulling Yu Fu behind him. His eyes then quickly began to sweep across the group. Anyone that he looked at would take a step back. It was him. It was him. Yao Lan began hopping outside the window, pointing at one youth that had shrunk back inside the group. The person that had been pointed out began to sweat profusely. I only touched it once, and it was by accident. It was her hair that was not tied up well. It wasn't me who caused it to slip. With a bang, Gu Xiang delivered a punch directly to his face, dropping him to the ground. Gu Changming. You actually dared to quibble. You actually dared to bully Yu Fu. Today, I will beat you until you recognize your mistakes. Gu Changxing, someone hit your little brother. Gu Changxing, someone hit your little brother. The crowd suddenly dispersed. Who knew who had shouted it, but a boy who was a little taller and partially resembled the youth that had been knocked down stepped forward. He looked at the three brothers from the Marquis Manor and said with a bit of hesitation, "Why did you hit my little brother?" Gui coldly snorted, "Gu Changming bullied Yu Fu. As I saw it, he found life to be too long, so I decided to grant his wish." Gu Changxing glanced at Yu Fu and saw a bit of her hair in a mess. He then looked at Gu Changming, who was laying on the ground. Sixth brother. Yu Fu stood behind Gu Wenqing and poked her head out. "I'm fine. Don't fight, or you'll end up being punished again when we get back." Gu Changxing seemed to have gained something to rely on, hastily saying, "Look, even your own little sister is saying that she's fine. You having beaten Changming to such a degree should count as offsetting it. Moreover, I know that this younger sister of yours is not blood-related. Why are you so upset?" To Gu Yi, the first half sounded rather reasonable, but the latter half infuriated him once more. Before Gu Yi could act, Gu Wenqing had grabbed a hold of Gu Changxing's wrist. Gently twisting it back, he made Gu Changxing begin to cry out. "Whether or not Yu Fu is father's daughter is none of your business. You only need to know that she is a young miss of Marquis Gu's manor. Even if she is just a normal little girl, could it be that there is reason to bully a little girl? Let go of my older brother." Who knew Gu Changming had stood back up, but when he saw that Gu Changxing's wrist had been firmly grabbed, he did not think much before picking up a chair and throwing it over. It would be very easy for Gu Wenqing to avoid it, but Yu Fu was standing behind him. If he avoided it, the one to be hurt might be her. Communicating verbally would be too slow, while the chair was traveling fast. Giving just a look, Gu Xiang understood and soared into the air, kicking away the chair. An entire chair was reduced to splinters that flew all over. Fourth brother, stop fighting. Quickly try and stop fifth brother and sixth brother. Yu Fu was becoming frantic from watching. All of the students at Guangsha Study were part of the Gu clan. If things got out of hand, Gu Huaijiang would definitely find out about it. When that time came, the ones to suffer would be Gu Wenqing's group. Gu Wenqing was a little bit older, and he disdained using martial arts to bully others. Thus he coldly snorted and released his hold on Gu Changxing's wrist. "Gu Changming, Gu Changxing. As long as you apologize to Yu Fu, I will not follow up on today's matters." The commotion over here had gotten too large, as all of the older students from the neighboring class ran out and began to watch the scene unfold. Gu Changxing and his brother were willing to admit their wrongdoing. It was natural that they could not compete against Gu Wenqing's group, whose background was in martial arts. It was possible that even if the two brothers worked together, they could not even defeat the youngest in Gu. But to have them apologize to a young girl in front of so many people, it was something that would tarnish their reputation a little too much. I say, Gu Changxing, you should just apologize. She is the young miss of the Marquis Manor. How could we possibly afford to offend her? Do you also want to offend the three sirs of the Marquis Manor? Yu Fu sought out the source of the voice. The person that had spoken was the youth who was seated in front of her, the one that had accused her of deceiving Teacher Zhou. It would have been better if this had not been said. Now that it had been said, Gu Changxing and his brother felt even more embarrassed. If they apologized today, would they not be discussed as being so afraid of the Marquis Manor's young sirs that they would even be afraid of a little girl of unknown origins? But if they did not apologize? Seeing Gu glare at them with his eyes bulging out like bronze bells, if they did not apologize, they would definitely be given a serious beating. Just as they were hesitating, Gu Xiang and Gu lost their patience. You won't apologize, is that right? Then taste my fist. Saying this, he dragged Gu Changming over, smashed his fist into his face, and cursed, I heard that you had a frail body when you were young, and that's why your dad chose the name Changming for you. Why do I feel like you should be called Biaoming? You definitely only dared to bully Yu Fu because you don't want to live. Just as Gu Changxing was about to try and save his little brother, he was also dragged to the ground and held there by the two. He grimaced in pain while his face became battered and bloody. Gu Wenqing simply stood to the side with his hands behind his back. Turning his head, he gave Yaolan a look to have her come over and retie Yu Fu's hair. Naturally, he could not interfere. Gu Xiang and Gu Yi were both young. Their martial arts were not very good, and they would not beat the two too harshly. It would just be a bit of a lesson. If he interfered, the bullying would be far too much for two people who did not know any martial arts. Yu Fu seemed to understand what he was thinking. She just sighed. While allowing Yaolan to tidy her hair, she said, Fifth brother, sixth brother, they definitely know that they are wrong. In truth, they did not do it on purpose. Just let them go, okay? If Gu Changxing and Gu Changming were previously reluctant to apologize because they were afraid of losing face, now that their faces were beaten black and blue, they naturally no longer cared about face. That's right, Yu Fu is right. We know that we were wrong. Gu Xiang looked at Yu Fu. Yaolan had already picked up the pearl from the ground and taken care of fixing her hair. Although it was no longer as tidy as it had been in the morning, there did not appear to be any problems. Only then did he nod in satisfaction. All right, since Yu Fu said it, we'll spare you this once. If you dare to bully Yu Fu again, you won't even get the chance to apologize. What happened? An old and strict voice rang out from the door. The students that had previously been hanging around and watching the spectacle scattered like birds startled by the twang of a bowstring. They all returned to their own classrooms to read. This was bad. It was Teacher Lin. Teacher Lin. Upon seeing him walk over, Gu Changxing and Gu Changming exchanged a glance and rushed over in unison. Lin Fengmiao was given a fright. What happened to you two? Your faces are all bloody and bruised. It was Gu Xiang and Gu Yi. They were beating us. The two knew that Gu Wenqing was Teacher Lin's favorite pupil, and they did not dare mention his name, thus they only brought up Gu Xiang and Gu Yi. Those two frequently skipped classes, and Teacher Lin was already quite dissatisfied with them. Now that they had been tattled on, he naturally believed it a bit. Gu Yi, I had just lectured you, yet you just went further. To come and beat a schoolmate, you really are preposterous. Very well, Gu Changming, you two really are quite good. Vile people tattle first. How can you dare to not tell teacher that it was you two who bullied Yu Fu first? Gu Yi was in a fury and wanted to rush forward to argue with them. Their faces were already bruised and swollen to the point of looking like pigs, and they shrank back behind Teacher Lin. Suddenly feeling something tug at the corner of his clothes, Gu Yi turned back and saw Yu Fu shake her head with her brow furrowed. Sixth brother, don't bring that up. Teacher Lin does not like me. If you bring this up, he will get even angrier. Her voice was very quiet, but Teacher Lin had sharp ears and instantly brushed his beard. Leaving the school at night, Gu Xiang and Gu Yi had sickly looks on their faces. Gu Wenqing held Yu Fu's hand and slowly walked along behind them. Seeing the two with their heads drooped, he helplessly shook his head. Don't worry, when we get back, I will speak on their behalf. The two immediately turned back around with smiles on their faces and began to toady up to Gu Wenqing. Fourth brother has always treated us the best. If father wants to beat us later, you need to stop him. If it's 10 strikes, it's fine. Gu Changxing and his brother were given quite a few punches by us. It would still be them who suffered the most. If it's 20 strikes, fourth brother absolutely must stop him. Yu Fu had been walking along with her head down the entire time. Even the two pearls in her hair were a little dimmer. Gu Xiang and Gu Yi looked over at her in confusion. Little Yu Fu, what's wrong? Have you been feeling wronged? She could hardly be blamed. She had always been treated like a treasure in Marquis Gu's manor. This was the first time that anyone had dared to bully her. Her feeling miserable is something that ought to happen. Don't feel too bad. If you feel sad, I'll beat Gu Changming another beating to vent for you. I'll just push my luck. Even if father strikes me 30 times, I cannot allow you to suffer any misery. Yu Fu meekly looked up with her pink and tender lips pursed. She muttered, I don't want you to get a beating, it was always because of her. It was like this previously when they went boating, and it was the same this time in the classroom. As long as any little thing happened to her, Gu Huaijiang would always blame the brothers that were accompanying her. This left her feeling very uneasy. Everyone let out a sigh. So it was for that. Don't worry. We have been getting beaten since childhood and have gotten used to it long ago. Being from the military Gu family, how could we be unable to endure a being caned tens of times? Gu Yi began to talk big. After he finished speaking, he swallowed some saliva. Being caned tens of times. If it could be avoided, they would obviously prefer to avoid being caned. When they arrived, it was already time for dinner. None of the four returned to their rooms and went directly to the main hall to see Gu Huaijiang. Gu Huaijiang was currently reading next to his bed. Going by the cover, it was The Art of War by Sun Tzu that he had already worn out. He only raised his head when he saw the four of them return. The four looked shaky and uneasy. Even Yu Fu was anxiously looking at him. It seemed as though she was worried about something. Gu Wenqing was the eldest of the four. Thinking a bit, he figured that he should step forward to admit wrongdoing, but who knew that Gu Huaijiang would already stand up. You must be tired after studying for an entire day, right? Go and eat first. We'll talk later. After saying this, he had Qi Zhou send a message to the kitchen, while Gu Wenqing's group exchanged looks of dismay. Normally speaking, Gu Huaijiang would immediately know about everything that had happened at the school. Where was there any need to wait for class to end? He clearly knew that they had gotten into a fight today, yet he did not admonish them. He even warmly allowed them to eat first. Gu Xiang and Gu Yi exchanged a glance and silently shuddered. There is a saying that it is particularly calm before the storm. Even Gu Wenqing was a little uncertain. He did not know why Gu Huaijiang would leave this matter alone. Just as they were hesitating, they saw Gu Shubai and their two other brothers walk in. They had strange smiles on their faces, and this immediately made it clear that they had heard about what had happened at the school. This made things even stranger. Yu-Fu, the kitchen made the lotus seed and chicken soup that you like. Quickly head over there. Gu Shubai cheerfully waved to her. Yu-Fu took a look at Gu Wenqing, then obediently walked over. The meal was eaten in complete silence. Gu Xiang and Gu Yi did not have the appetite to eat more. As for Yu-Fu, she was fed by Gu Shubai until her belly bulged and almost ended up forgetting about what had happened at the school. It was only after the meal had ended and tea was brought out that she saw Gu Xiang and Gu Yi with their faces filled with terror that she remembered the incident. The little hand that was holding the teacup instantly became more cautious, and she occasionally glanced at Gu Huaijiang's expression. Father, today's incident at the school was all Son's fault. Gu Wenqing really was a good older brother, taking sole responsibility and blame, regardless of whether it was fifth brother, sixth brother, or son who did it. As the eldest, Son did not do a good job taking care of them. If father wishes to hand down punishment, it should be Son that is punished. Just as Yu-Fu wanted to speak up, Gu Shubai gently grabbed her wrist under the table and shook his head very slightly at her. She could only watch in silence. Father, I was the first one to attack. Fourth brother couldn't stop me at all. He can't be blamed. That Gu Changming. Either way, it was I who did not remember father's teachings and caused trouble at the school once more. Gu Yi was a little dejected. He knew that Gu Huaijiang hated hearing excuses from the one who had done something wrong. Oh. You caused trouble. Why is it that I heard that Yu-Fu was bullied today at school, and you were the one who acted out to protect her? Gu Yi raised his head in incredulity and saw Gu Huaijiang slowly take a sip of tea. He had a faint smile on his face. I have always taught you that you must not bully the weak, but protecting a younger sister is something that should be done as an older brother. I have heard all about what happened today. You did nothing wrong. How hard was it to receive affirmation from Gu Huaijiang? Say that sooner, father. I was so scared that I didn't even dare to eat my fill at dinner. The three rejoiced, and Yu-Fu was especially happy. Head General, you won't be blaming my older brothers. That's great. I thought that they would get punished again because of me. What is this about because of you? Gu Huaijiang slowly looked around at everyone. You are the younger sister. They should be protecting you. If they hit someone for the sake of protecting you, I naturally won't blame them. As long as it's not like the last time on the river, where they could not win the fight, and you fell into the water. In Gu Huaijiang's eyes, Yu-Fu falling into the water was the same as Gu Jiugu and the others not being able to win a fight against those drunkards. And there were no problems with this logic. Gu Jiugu cleared his throat in embarrassment. Gu Changming and his brother's wounds are not serious. Father has already invited a doctor to see to them. It was they who bullied Yu-Fu first, and they even spoke insolently. Their family will no longer dare to make a fuss. That's good. Speaking of, they are from the same clan. If things really did become uneasy, it would look as though our Marquis Manor is bullying others. Gu Wenqing was more thorough in his considerations than Gu Xiang and Gu Yi. He paid more attention to the reputation of Marquis Gu's manor and thought more about that than about any canings. Don't worry. Gu Shubai smiled and said, Father has always treated people kindly, and we provide even more help to the clan. They won't forget the kindness of the past over some conflicts between children. Moreover, not only had Gu Huaijiang invited a doctor for their treatment, but he had also sent quite a few valuable supplements. Naturally, the silver given was also not a small amount. As long as Yu-Fu was able to live peacefully and without being bullied, these were small matters. Yu-Fu, however, suddenly grimaced. Head General, though you aren't assigning any blame, Teacher Lin seems to be very mad. He already disliked me, but won't he be even more unwilling to teach me now? Lin Fengmiao disliked Yu Fu. Everyone looked at her in confusion. It was as though they had heard something inconceivable. Yu Fu, you're overthinking it. Is there a person in this world who could dislike you? If there is, it must be because they truly don't understand you. Gu Shubai spoke in earnest, leaving Yu Fu in a daze. Gu Yi had been so scared earlier that he could not eat. Now, he was holding a pastry to fill his belly. Hearing this conversation, he quickly raised his head. There's also one other possibility. It's that the old man is blind. He spoke unclearly with his mouth full. The crumbled bits of the pastry began to fly out of his mouth. The next morning, Gu Shubai personally sent Yu Fu to the school. Eldest brother, you still have other things to take care of, right? There's no need to send me. It's fine if fourth brother and them accompany me. On the path to Guangsha study, the trees were thick, and the morning fog was cool. Gu Wenqing's group of 3 walked at the front. For the sake of matching Yu Fu's little steps, Gu Shubai slowly walked with her in the back. Aren't you afraid of Teacher Lin? If I accompany you, won't you feel less afraid? Yu Fu held his hand. His hands were large enough to hold her entire hand in just his palm. His curled fingers were long, elegant, and fair with clean and tidy fingernails. Each joint had a distinct outline, and his hands were filled with a reassuring strength. Her worries were reduced by quite a bit, however, her heart had begun to beat a little bit faster. In this sort of quiet path in the middle of a forest, Gu Shubai could clearly hear even the sound of leaves falling. He would definitely be able to hear the sound of her heart beating. With a bit of a guilty conscience, Yu Fu raised her head, her eyes following the pale blue robes up. His skin was fair as always as his jaw slightly dropped, and his eyes conveyed a smile while twinkling like stars. Are you still scared? And no. Yu Fu hastily said, if Teacher Lin really is angry, I will just apologize to him. If he doesn't accept it, it's fine if I just continue learning with Teacher Zhou. Teacher Zhou is Teacher Lin's disciple. It's natural that he won't be much worse, and he has a gentle temper. Her words were reasonable and calm. It was clear that she had prepared herself. Gu Shubai gently smiled, his eyes becoming gentler. They were even calmer than they had been earlier in the morning. To know of Teacher Zhou's good points at such a young age is really quite impressive. Back when Gu Xiang and Gu Yi just started attending school, they always looked down on Teacher Zhou for teaching the younger students. You are far sharper than them, not paying any heed to vanity or glory. Yu Fu already disliked it when others said that she was young, but she especially did not want him to think of her as being too much younger than him. She unwittingly began to walk on her tippy toes and straightened her back, saying, even though I am only 12 years old, I am more mature than other 12-year-olds, isn't that right? Gu Shubai watched her little head gradually get higher and higher. Though it was just a little bit, she began to sway slightly. Today, Lian Zhu had tied her hair up into 2 little buns. The looks were secondary, while the security was the most important part. The small silver lilac pins in her hair did not sway and were merely decorations. Even if they were accidentally knocked out, it would not affect her hair unlike what had happened the previous time. He reached out a hand to feel her hair as if thinking about something. Not hearing a response for a long time, Yu Fu became anxious and asked once more, eldest brother, isn't that right? Sue. Sure. There were times when he felt that she was unreasonably childish, and there were also times when he felt that she was exceptionally thorough and considerate, unlike a 12-year-old child. It might be that this was just how girls were. They were different from boys. On this point, Gu Shubai felt that he needed to think about things a little more. But what? He slightly raised his eyebrow, but when Gu Xiang and Gu Yi were young, they would also like to say that they were more mature than others their age. It seems that regardless of whether it's boys or girls, that's a common occurrence for all children. Yu-Fu was dazed, then angrily puffed up her cheeks in and snorted at him. I am not a little child. When they arrived outside Guangsha's study, Yu-Fu brushed her hair and asked Gu Shubai, eldest brother, my hair isn't messy, right? Gu Shubai was about to take her to see Lin Fengmiao. She needed to pay close attention to her appearance. It's not at all messy. It's extremely nice. But he really wanted to reach out and mess it up. What sort of mentality was this? As usual, Lin Fengmiao was stretching in the wing of the backyard. The white-haired old man stretched his body without any haste. It seemed to have a unique style. With a sweeping gaze, he saw Gu Shubai and instantly began to smile. The wrinkles on his face resembled a blooming golden chrysanthemum. Shubai, why have you come back today? Comparing the look in Lin Fengmiao's eyes when he saw Gu Shubai to when he saw Gu Wenqing, Yu-Fu finally realized that his favorite pupil was definitely not Gu Wenqing. It was Gu Shubai. Seeing that he was leading Yu-Fu by the hand, Lin Fengmiao's look of joy dissipated just a little. Student greets teacher Lin. Yu-Fu walked out and respectfully performed a greeting. There was none of the innocence or shamelessness that she displayed in front of Gu Shubai. Catching her off guard, teacher Lin also smiled at her. Shubai, are you worried that this old man will bully this little sister, thus you personally brought her to the study? Gu Shubai saw his expression and came to an understanding, saying with a smile, how could that be? Teacher is a talented scholar who has taught all kinds of students and thus can teach to a student's level. But Yu-Fu feels that her initial appearance stirred up some trouble and feared that teacher would be unhappy, thus she had me come with her to apologize. Ha, it's not like that. Lin Fengmiao waved his hand, turning around and retrieving 2 pieces of paper. On them were the girl's elegant writing. The penmanship was orderly while the characters were unrestrained. The style was also more refined than that of a hermit. If it was not for the slight immaturity, it would definitely be considered exceptionally beautiful handwriting. This is what Yu-Fu wrote yesterday. Teacher Zhou gave it to me last night. He also told me about Yu-Fu's understanding of the words Guangsha. Yu-Fu, can you recite it for us again? After saying this, he handed the paper to Gu Shubai, then placed his hands behind his back and slightly leaned over to smile at Yu-Fu. Yu-Fu nodded and recounted what she had told Zhou Xidao, providing her understanding of Guangsha study. Gu Shubai looked at the words on the 2 pieces of paper, and the corners of his lips slowly crept up. There seemed to be a light that burned in his eyes. Very well said. Teacher, what do you think? He looked toward teacher Lin, and the latter nodded while brushing his beard. To say something offensive, though Gu Xiang and Gu Yi have been studying with me, if this question was asked of them, it's unlikely that they could provide a more thorough explanation than Yu-Fu. I originally thought that Lord Marquis also forgot the goal of the study, actually sending a girl that he is doting on to play at my school, sullying the words Guangsha. After hearing Yu-Fu's insights, I know that it was my pettiness that misjudged Lord Marquis' gentlemanly heart. As long as the student is as good a female student as Yu-Fu, I will definitely do my all to provide instruction. It's no wonder Head General handed the school to teacher Lin. He really is a well-learned scholar of good character. It's not for power or influence. He simply teaches students who are willing to devote themselves to studying. He really is dedicated. As I see it, teacher Lin is not at all demanding, nor is he a stubborn old pedant. He's great. Even if I ask him about things between Western Kun and Eastern Ling, he is willing to answer. Ever since Lin Fengmiao took Yu-Fu in, she had basically taken over Gu Wenqing's standing in the class. She had become teacher Lin's favorite pupil. Even on days off, she would mention this and that about Teacher Lin. She brought him up so much that Gu Xiang and Gu Yi were on the verge of developing calluses in their ears. How did they not notice sooner that Yu Fu was a darling who loved studying? Little Yu Fu, since you like studying so much, could it be that you even want to become a female top scholar? Why could I not? Yu Fu held a white porcelain bowl containing bird nest, and the little silver spoon rang out clearly when it hit the side of the bowl. Of the 3 countries on this continent, Northern Li and Western Kun don't differentiate between men and women. In Northern Li, both boys and girls have the right to succession. For example, the nobles can choose to name their son or daughter as the heir to the family. In Western Kun, there are even female generals. Their female generals are valiant and courageous, and they don't lose to the men. Only Eastern Ling places any emphasis on girls being better without any talents. Gu Xiang and Gu Yi were young, and their minds were innocent. Yu Fu was also unreserved when speaking with them. She would say anything that came to mind. The 2 heard what she said and found it to be reasonable. Gu Huaijiang had previously said that he had met female generals from Western Kun on the battlefield who would not lose to male generals. Eastern Ling is a country with culture that studies Confucian classics, while Western Kun is a country of barbarians. How can the 2 be mentioned in the same breath? A lazy voice suddenly came from outside the door. Following this, the sound of a folding fan snapping open rang out. Gu Jiugu walked in from the outside and continued, in addition to this, Western Kun is covered in mountains and has a low population. To fulfill their ambition of taking our Eastern Ling's territory, they had no choice but to take in females to fill their ranks. As for our Eastern Ling, we have plenty of people, and our army is more than enough to deal with Western Kun. What is there any need for women to step onto the battlefield? He slowly waved his fan and casually sat down next to Yu Fu. The second young sir came. This servant will pour you some tea. Lian Bai received his fan with a smile, and Gu Jiugu curled his lips into a smile, many thanks. The slender female hands that received the fan paused, and Lian Bai's face blushed a little. Lowering her head very slightly, she retreated from the room. Why has second brother suddenly come? Wasn't it said that father called you and eldest brother over? I was just about to bring up this matter. The second prince and Princess Danyang have come. His Majesty said that the princes should come and learn some martial arts at the Marquis Manor. Only like that can they be proficient in both studying and martial arts. Who knows why, but Princess Danyang also tagged along, and the second prince had me come and invite Yu Fu over to see her. Yu Fu said, "Who is this second prince?" The second prince, Ning Qingji, is Princess Danyang's older brother and the son of the first empress. Though he is the son of the empress, he is the second child. He is the same age as me, turning 19 this year. His Majesty's eldest son is the son of Consort Xian. During the Dragon Boat Festival, they were all sent out to Minzhou, thus you haven't met them before. While Gu Jiugu gave this explanation, Yu Fu recalled that Princess Danyang liked to spend time with Gu Shubai and quickly stood up, saying, "Then let's quickly go over. It would not do to be late." Princess Danyang also does not like horse riding or archery. She must be feeling extremely bored from sitting at the training ground. I will go and keep her company. She isn't bored at all. She is just spending all of her time with eldest brother, leaving the second prince with no chance to properly train in archery. That's why the second prince had me come to find you to divert her attention. As Gu Jiugu spoke, he suddenly remembered something and gave Yu Fu a look over. The second prince did it to have Gu Shubai focus on teaching him in archery. Why was Yu Fu in such a rush to get to the training ground? Let's hurry, second brother. Yu Fu tugged at his sleeve, and Gu Xiang and Gu Yi also stood up, we'll also go. When Lian Bai returned with the newly brewed tea, the seats around the table were already empty. All that remained was Yufu's half-empty bowl of bird nest. She suddenly saw that Gujyoga's folding fan was still resting on a shelf nearby. Thinking that he must have left in a hurry and forgotten that she had taken it, Lian Bai thought quickly and wrapped it in a thin piece of fabric. The summer days were sweltering, and Yufu was shocked to find that a mat awning had been placed on the training ground. Under the awning stood a group of young men. When Gu Hanamo usually trained in archery, he would never make use of a mat awning. When everyone arrived, they saw an arrow fly out from beneath the awning, striking the center of the target. Good! Gu Joguk shouted out in praise. It was only after getting closer that they found that the one who had shot was Gu Shubai. When he loosed the arrow, his body was straight, but his hands were relaxed. It was thanks to this that he had such great accuracy. All of the young men heaped on their praise. Putting down the bow, he saw Yufu come over at Gu Joga's side. Curious, he looked at the second prince. He had some of the same facial characteristics as Princess Danyang. His forehead had a faint aura of haughtiness along with the unnatural vanity that came from his imperial lineage. The roundness that would amplify a girl's beauty just made him look a little bit chubby. Fortunately, his body was not fat, and he was only a little bit shorter than Gu Shubai. The second prince also looked at her out of curiosity. The girl before her was a little bit smaller than he had imagined, and she was a little prettier than was reasonable. It was as if she was an ice carving of a pink dumpling. It felt as if she would melt if the day was any hotter. That pair of large and jet-black eyes seemed to move like a cool spring in the mountains. Just the sight of them would make people forget about conventions. He put down his bow in a daze, and Yufu walked forward, gently greeting him. Greetings, second prince. The second prince was startled and looked around, asking curiously, there are so many people around, and you have never met me before. How do you know that I am the second prince? There were 4 or 5 other young men from aristocratic families around him. They were all people who got along well with him and Marquis Gu's manner. Yufu smiled, her dimples shallowly appearing, that bearing is naturally different from everyone else. Her gaze, however, unconsciously dropped past the jade seal hanging from his hip that clearly had a dragon design. If he was not a prince, could he possibly wear a dragon design? Sure enough, you are smart. It's no wonder everyone in the capital is saying that Lord Marquis Gu's daughter is smart. Even if you are not related to him by blood, as I see it, you have Marquis Gu's grace. The second prince wanted to get along well, but Gu Shubai raised an eyebrow and said, the matter of Yufu not being fathers, could it be that everyone already knows about it? The second prince was a little embarrassed and did not know how to respond. Going by Gu Shubai's expression, it seemed that he did not like hearing others mention this. It seemed as though it was a great affront to Yufu. Just as he was worrying about whether he should explain or apologize, they suddenly heard Princess Danyang's voice come from behind. Sister Yufu, you came. She stepped forward and warmly held Yufu's hand. I heard Brother Shubai say that you were studying at the school today. If you have anything that you don't understand, I can come to the Marquis Manor more often to teach you. Before Yufu could respond, the sound of laughter rang out. Princess Danyang, you're going to teach Yufu. I fear that you aren't even on Yufu's level. Gu Yi was young and had a direct personality. He would speak whatever was on his mind and laughed loudly while speaking. Princess Danyang instantly felt embarrassed. She slightly furrowed her brow, and the second prince gave her a look, telling her not to argue with Gu Yi. After Gu Yi stopped laughing, Gu Jogu tried to mend the situation, saying, Princess, don't take it to heart. Yufu is indeed well learned. These days, she has been improving by leaps and bounds while studying under Teacher Lin. Teacher said that even fourth brother is on the verge of being unable to compete with her. The second prince raised an eyebrow in surprise. Lin Fengmiao, Teacher Lin, is a renowned scholar. To be able to receive his praise, Sister Yu Fu must truly be talented. Danyang, it's your loss. Princess Danyang's face blushed even harder upon hearing this. Initially, she had wanted to use this chance to visit Marquis Gu's manor more often, but who knew that she would embarrass herself? Since they were in front of Gu Shubai, she could not act out. She could only act as if nothing was wrong and nod. It was because Sister Yu Fu looks young that I thought that she was still learning to read. It was my fault. Second prince's praise is misplaced. Princess Danyang, how about you and I go sit inside? Yu Fu had not forgotten that her purpose for coming here was to separate the second prince and Princess Danyang to ensure that she did not cause any trouble. The second prince became even happier to hear this, thus he let them go inside. Gu Shubai ordered for some chilled fruit juice to be sent inside. Gu Yi, I haven't seen you shoot in a long time. I wonder if you have improved at all. The second prince handed the bow to Gu Yi, and the latter confidently received it without any reservations. You'll find out once I've shot. The boys trained in archery outside, and Yu Fu obediently sipped her cold sour plum drink while sitting under the awning. Princess Danyang's face remained red for a while. It was only after she recovered that she found that she was drinking very slowly and steadily, taking one sip at a time. Sister Yu Fu, don't be so restrained. Didn't I tell you last time to call me Sister Danyang? Why did you just call me Princess? Restrained? Yu Fu awkwardly put down the small bowl. She had only just drank the bird nest soup before coming over. Now, she was unable to drink anything else, thus she was drinking so slowly. If she did not drink, she would need to speak with Princess Danyang. She truly did not want to think of something to chat with her about. Who knew that she would be misunderstood as being restrained? Yes, Sister Danyang. Princess Danyang was screaming internally. Last time, those young misses had visited and spurned Yu Fu for not being Marquis Gu's daughter, and they had all left, while she was the only one who had stayed. Yu Fu was clearly very grateful for that. Why was it that she now felt a little bit distant? Sister Yu Fu, watch my second brother shoot. Through the thin fabric, Princess Danyang saw the second prince suddenly raise the bow and cheerfully told Yu Fu to watch. Yu Fu looked over. The arrow flew straight, and though it landed on the target, it did not hit the red center. Princess Danyang saw that her interest was weak and knew that after seeing Gu Shubai's archery, she could not bring herself to praise the second prince's skill. It was inevitable that she would look down on it. Elder brother being able to hit the target is already quite amazing. There's no need for him to hit the center. In the future, he will be the ruler to unite the country. There won't be any need for him to personally ride onto the battlefield. This level is already good enough. Who knew if she was just overly hasty to repair his reputation or if she felt that Yu Fu was too young and could not understand, but Princess Danyang spoke very directly. Yu Fu thought quickly and looked at her while feigning ignorance. So second prince has already been announced as the crown prince. I did not know about this previously. If I had known, I should have called him crown prince. Only now did Princess Danyang realize that she had misspoken. For the sake of not losing face in front of Yu Fu, she remained stubborn and said, though second brother has not yet been announced as the crown prince, he is father emperor's only son born from the empress. In the future, he will definitely become the crown prince. Right now, it's because he is too young, and father emperor wishes to have him train for a few more years. Yu Fu sneered internally. Her guess was correct. Sure enough, Princess Danyang's dignified bearing and graciousness were completely hollow. Just looking at how angry she became from Gu Yi's earlier mocking, it could be seen that this was the case. Whether it was her kindness towards herself or others, it was all for the sake of getting closer to her eldest brother. Could it be that eldest brother also knew this, and this was why he showed no acceptance for her feelings? It's definitely like this. Yu Fu carelessly agreed, plucking a purple grape that was covered in beads of water. Without even peeling it, she tossed it into her mouth. So cold. Seeing her occupied with eating, Princess Danyang scornfully smiled and relaxed. If Yu Fu was smart, she would remember the improper words that had just been said and reveal them. That would be bad. Grapes taste better when peeled. Diener, why haven't you peeled some grapes for Yu Fu? With Princess Danyang having spoken, her personal maid stepped forward. Moving the grapes from in front of Yu Fu over, she began to peel them. Yu Fu could only sit there and obediently eat them. One would be peeled, and she would eat one. She ate until her little cheeks were completely round. As she ate, someone outside suddenly reported. The eldest prince has arrived. The eldest prince? Yu Fu held a grape in her mouth. She wondered to herself, the second prince was here, so why had the eldest prince also come? Since they were brothers, they should have come together. Why would one come before the other? It really was odd. Princess Danyang's expression changed and instantly looked to be very irritated, but she quickly recovered her usual expression. Sister Yu Fu, the eldest prince has come. Let's go out. She said the eldest prince and not eldest brother. Yu Fu keenly noted that there was some friction between the siblings of the imperial family. Walking outside, she saw what could be considered friction. Eldest brother, why have you suddenly come? I came to Marquis Gu's manor today to ask for advice on archery. Could it be that eldest brother didn't know? The second prince stood in front of the eldest prince, but there was none of the respect that a younger brother should show. Instead, he was full of bravado. Father Emperor said that we, as princes, should come to the Marquis Manor more often to become learned and trained in martial arts. I was thinking of finding a time to come without disrupting them. Hearing that second brother came today, I also came over. Does this not save the young sirs quite a bit of trouble? The eldest prince was calm and reasoned. Yu Fu looked from a distance and saw that he was thin and that he was not as tall as the second prince. If he was not a few years older than the second prince, it might be that he would look more like the younger brother than the older brother. Gu Shubai and the others said, eldest prince is too modest. How could it be a disruption? Everyone learning from each other is a great thing. The eldest prince smiled in agreement, but the second prince's face became a little ugly. In front of outsiders, the eldest was always better at putting on an act. Eldest brother, you came. Princess Danyang stepped forward at the optimal time and slightly bowed with an impeccable smile. Why is Sister Danyang also here? Oh, it must be for the sake of the eldest, right? Why is Sister Danyang also here? Oh, it must be for the sake of the eldest, right? The eldest prince gently teased her, and Princess Danyang's emotions instantly became a mess. Her eyes began to shyly drift in Gu Shubai's direction. Gu Shubai's expression did not change. It seemed as though he did not understand what the eldest prince meant. His eyes remaining focused. Princess Danyang retracted her gaze in disappointment. The eldest prince knew when to stop and stopped his teasing. His eyes then turned to Yu Fu, who was hiding behind her. This one should be young Miss Yu Fu, right? He passed by everyone else and stepped forward. Without any concern for his own status, he slightly squatted down and spoke with Yu Fu while staying even with her eye level. Yu Fu was in a daze and forgot to greet him. It was only after a few moments had passed that she slightly bowed. Greetings, eldest prince. You really are a pretty girl. I frequently hear people in the palace talk about you, saying that you are smart and clever. Even though this is our first meeting, I came without a gift. I hope that young miss does not mind. Saying this, he removed the jade pendant from his waist and handed it to Yu Fu. It was a very nice piece of white jade. The carving was exquisite, which made it clear that this was not a normal item. Yu Fu hastily took a step back. Something worn by the eldest prince must be of the highest quality. A young child does not dare accept such a valuable item. Hearing what she said, Gu Shubai smiled. When this smile was seen by Princess Danyang, she found it dazzling. This was the first time that Yu Fu herself admitted that she was a child. The eldest prince also smiled. Maintaining his squatted position, he turned to look at Gu Shubai. Eldest, Yu Fu refuses to accept the gift. How can I thank you for your hospitality? Gu Shubai looked carefully. Though the piece of jade was indeed quite good, it did not look like something that could only be worn by the imperial family, nor was it something that the eldest prince usually wore. It was far more likely that he had prepared it specifically for this visit to the Marquis Manor. Yu Fu, it would be ungracious to not accept the eldest prince's kindness. Just accept it. Eldest brother had told her to accept it. That meant that she should accept it. Yu Fu did not think about it any further and received the jade pendant, smiling at the eldest prince. The second prince saw this smile and felt his heart get pierced. He felt that Yu Fu had not smiled so warmly when she had faced him earlier. Even more of a problem, he had been entirely preoccupied with using archery training as an excuse to cozy up to the young sirs of Marquis Gu's manor and ended up forgetting to prepare a gift for Yu Fu. Now, he had lost out to his eldest brother by a lot. Eldest prince, it's fine to just call me Yu Fu. He had a noble status, yet he continued to call her young miss. This was a little too polite. Moreover, Yu Fu liked that he squatted down to meet her eye level. This gave her a feeling of being respected, thus she wanted to be a little closer with the eldest prince. Since that's the case, there's no need for Yu Fu to call me eldest prince. I am only 3 years older than your eldest brother. How about you also call me big brother? Yu Fu hurriedly shook her head, running over to Gu Shubai and tugging at his sleeve. I already have eldest brother. Her small hands were cold. While moving, she accidentally brushed Gu Shubai's wrist. Thinking about it, she must have eaten too many of the chilled foods under the awning. Having been clung onto by her in front of so many, Gu Shubai's mood instantly improved. The eldest prince was startled and slowly stood up. My name is Ning Yi Zhao. How about calling me brother Yi Zhao? One of its meanings was assistance. Yu Fu mulled over this name for a while before looking back up and smiling sweetly. Brother Yi Zhao. After the eldest prince and his siblings left, everyone let out a sigh of relief. I was worried earlier that the eldest prince and the second prince were about to begin fighting. The eldest prince was fine, but the second prince looked like he was ready to fight when he saw him. Even I could see the bloodthirst. Gu Yi sat cross-legged in fear on a chair, only recovering after downing a cup of cold sour plum drink. The row of targets 100 paces away still recorded the results of the earlier archery. Naturally, there was no need to talk about Gu Shubai and his siblings. Even the youngest, Gu Yi, could accurately hit the red center with very little deviation. As for the eldest prince and the second prince, their skills were a little lacking. Comparatively, the eldest prince was better than the second prince, hitting the center at a higher rate. It was clear that he had put in some more practice. The eldest prince came today as an unfriendly guest. His intent was to compete with the second prince. How could the second prince not be looking for a fight? Gu Jiugu looked up at Gu Yi. Next time you're in front of Princess Danyang, don't say that sort of thing. She is not as lenient as you believe. Yu Fu's ears instantly perked up. She wanted to hear what Gu Jiugu had to say about Princess Danyang. Gu Yi snorted and looked over at Yu Fu. of course, I know that. It was she who mocked Yu Fu first. That's why I used those words to push her down. That way, she won't feel so full of herself and make Yu Fu feel miserable. The attitudes of the young misses from the previous time were known by all. They also had no desire to see that scene replay itself. Yu Fu quietly asked Gu Shubai, eldest brother, do you think that Princess Danyang is like second brother said? The words Princess Danyang were already enough to make Yu Fu's opinion perfectly clear. Gu Shubai smiled and patted her head, is this still not clear enough? If even a young child like Yu Fu could understand it, how could they fail to understand? Yu Fu carefully thought about what he said and suddenly understood. Indeed, things were sufficiently clear. Princess Danyang pursuing Gu Shubai was something that everyone knew, yet he never gave the slightest reply. This was more than enough to make his stance known. Who knew why, but knowing that Gu Shubai had no feelings for Princess Danyang suddenly calmed her down. Eldest brother, what do you think? Gu Xiang suddenly turned around and asked Gu Shubai. What were you guys saying? Gu Shubai was startled, finding that he had not been paying attention to their discussion. He had been completely focused on talking to Yu Fu. Gu Xiang repeated himself, we were saying that the eldest prince and the second prince are going tit for tat. Who exactly does His Majesty favor more? One was the eldest son, and the other was the son of the official wife. To a country that adhered so tightly to the rules like Eastern Ling, choosing either one as the crown prince would be reasonable. Moreover, the two received equal amounts of support and praise in court. As for who would inherit the throne, it really was hard to say. His Majesty does not have many children. Aside from the eldest prince and the second prince, the other princes are either lower in the line of succession, have some sort of disability, or their abilities are just average. These two princes both have the support of the officials, but the most important official has not yet chosen a side. In Eastern Ling's court, the most important official. Was that not just Gu Huaijiang? Everyone seemed to have come to a sudden realization. Eldest brother means to say that the eldest prince and the second prince used His Majesty's advice to visit our manor, but it was not to train in archery. Rather, they were here to curry favor with our Marquis Gu's manor. Based on His Majesty's trust in Gu Huaijiang and his standing in court, it could be said that the prince supported by Gu Huaijiang would almost certainly become the crown prince. Gu Shubai's gaze landed on Yu Fu's hand. A dark green ribbon wrapped around her fingers with a white jade pendant hanging from it. It was currently swinging back and forth. Yu Fu, do you like the eldest prince or the second prince? They're both pretty good and both treat me very well. But brother Yizhao, he must not be too fond of his name, right? Swinging the pendant back and forth, Yu Fu suddenly looked up and asked him this question. Tian, the Yi in Yizhao's name can mean to assist a ruler. Which prince to choose? Huaijiang, last time, we told the princes to go and train in archery at your manor. Do you feel that they made any improvements? The day was hot, and there was a large pile of ice placed in the imperial study. Two palace maids kneeled on the ground and waved large fans to disperse the cool air surrounding the mound of ice. At this moment in the imperial study, Emperor Ning was seated behind a long desk, while Gu Huaijiang was seated on an armchair on the opposite side. When in private with nobody else present, Emperor Ning liked to address people by name. Gu Huaijiang smiled and waved his hand. The eldest prince and second prince have been frequently visiting the manor, and both have been improving in archery. Archery is not their duty, so it's already very good that they are already able to reach their current level. Emperor Ning nodded. Just as Gu Huaijiang was thinking that he had just been asking a casual question, he suddenly raised his head once more. Then do you feel that the eldest prince has made a little more progress or the second prince has made a little more progress? After saying this, he stared at Gu Huaijiang. his expression dark and unclear. This question clearly had a second meaning, intending to find out what he thought of the two princes. Gu Huaijiang thought for a bit, his showing an absolute focus. This subject believes that the eldest prince has shown a little more growth. He is able to hit the center of the target at a slightly higher rate than the second prince. Emperor Ning was shocked. Carefully observing Gu Huaijiang's dignified face, he found that it was completely unmoving. It was as though he really was just saying who was better at archery and not suggesting who he was choosing. Emperor Ning suddenly laughed. "What are you being so serious for? We are just casually asking. You and I are friends in private. We are the best of friends. There's no need to be so cautious when speaking." Gu Huaijiang nodded but did not say anything else. He just picked up his teacup and took a sip. "Have a taste of these nectarines that just arrived in the palace from Minzhou. Apparently, they're particularly sweet because there was less rain. This summer has been especially hot, and not a single drop of rain has fallen. It's possible that there might be a drought." As Emperor Ning spoke, he could not help but let out a sigh, no longer finding the fresh nectarine to be as sweet as before. Fortunately, the national treasury is quite full with plenty of grain stored. Our Eastern Ling has much better grain production than Western Kuan. Even if we suffer from a drought this year, it will not have much of an effect on the lives of the people. Your Majesty, please be at ease. Emperor Ning nodded and said, "You are right. It's because Western Kuan's lands are infertile with many mountains and few wetlands that they have refused to give up on our Eastern Ling's territory. Fortunately, we have you at our border. Now, Shubai and the others have grown up, and they can also help share your burden and our burden. We feel even more at ease." With Gu Shubai's name having been brought up, Gu Huaijiang's brow slightly moved. He had a bad feeling. Sure enough, Emperor Ning very quickly said, "We remember that Shubai has come of age this year. Boys at that age should take a wife. Have you ever given any consideration to what sort of wife you will choose for him?" Indeed, Gu Huaijiang had never put any thought into it. But he knew that there were many who had been thinking about it for him, and Emperor Ning was one of them. Princess Danyang was his most beloved daughter. That she had feelings for Gu Shubai was something that almost everyone knew. Emperor Ning was also wanting to marry her to Gu Shubai. Once the imperial family and Marquis Gu's manor were connected by marriage, the relationship between the two families would become even more intimate. Eastern Ling's borders would also be even more stable. How could Gu Huaijiang not understand Emperor Ning's intentions? He stood up from his seat and replied, "This subject and Emperor Ning have been acquainted for many decades, and Emperor Ning understands this subject's personality the best. This subject is one who values affection and naturally do not wish to force my own son to marry a girl that he does not like. Regardless of whether it's Shubai or the young ones, this subject wishes for them to choose their own wives. Marriages had always been decided by the parents and blessed by the matchmaker." Gu Huaijiang's words went against convention but left Emperor Ning completely speechless. Based on what he meant, unless Gu Shubai himself liked Princess Danyang, he should not even think about marrying into Marquis Gu's manor. "Yes, you do have that sort of a personality. Your late wife passed away over a decade ago, yet you are unwilling to remarry. Back when you brought a daughter back, we thought that you had loosened up and found a girl you love outside. Who knew that this daughter was not actually yours?" Emperor Ning sighed. A person who could remain so faithful to his deceased wife. Having given the right to command Eastern Ling's army to such a person, he felt very at ease. "It's fine if your Majesty understands. But this subject is getting old, and there are talents in this country. This subject was wondering would your Majesty could take back the tiger tally and hand it to some of the younger officers to give them a chance to train a little while also giving them a chance to earn some glory." When the tiger tally was brought up, Emperor Ning sensitively furrowed his brow and unhappily looked at Gu Huaijiang. You in the end, you still think that we want to have Shu Bai get married to tie you up. We want to become relatives by marriage with you through our children, but this is just a personal desire. It's unrelated to national affairs. Your military career has been illustrious, so why do you always use the tiger tally as an excuse? Are you afraid that we will suspect you? Emperor Ning appeared to be a little exasperated. Just as Gu Huaijiang was about to speak up, Emperor Ning loudly said, "Sit down to speak. What are you standing up so randomly for?" The palace servant standing outside the imperial study heard the sounds coming from inside and smiled from ear to ear. It's that line again. Every time that His Majesty and Lord Marquis Gu meet in private, this line is brought out. Gu Huaijiang helplessly sat back down, his expression becoming a little more relaxed. It's not that this subject is worried that Your Majesty will suspect me. Rather, I am worried that the situation in court will become unstable. The right to the majority of Eastern Ling's army is in this subject's control. Those who know will say that it makes mobilizing the army for battle more convenient, but those who do not will worry that this subject will pose a threat. Emperor Ning raised an eyebrow. Running his fingers through his beard, he only spoke after a moment of pause. You are speaking of Prime Minister Yin, yes? We know that he has been dissatisfied with you for quite some time. He's just that narrow-minded of a person. Fortunately, he handles court affairs very methodically. Emperor Ning alternated between praise and disparagement. He spoke at lengths about Yin Yan. In the end, he stated his mind. You are more tolerant than him, so try to forgive him a little. We are thinking of giving his eldest son, Yin Shua, a bit of training. That child is much more easygoing. When the time comes, he will take over Yin Yan's position. This will avoid offending him, and it will be able to remedy the situation of General and Prime Minister being on bad terms. Make use of Yin Shua to remedy the situation. Gu Huaijiang did not know what to make of it. However, he had some doubts about the praises being sung about the Yin family's eldest son by the officials in court. What made him even more suspicious was that Yin Shua also happened to be present when Yu Fu had fallen into the river. Huaijiang, what are you thinking about? Emperor Ning saw that his mind was wandering and hastily called out to him. Oh, this subject was just thinking about Yu Fu. Last time, Zhou and the others took her out to see the city from the river, and she accidentally fell into the river. Who knew that these past few days would be so hot? This child likes the water and was asking for this subject to bring out to play by the river. Emperor Ning saw that he had the appearance of a doting father when saying this. He knew just how much he liked Yu Fu. We really are curious. Just how hallowed is this daughter that she can make you like her so much? Yin Yan, that old thing, this prince underestimated him. Qin Wushang sat in his carriage and left the palace. The carriage that he rode in today was different from usual. This was a carriage sent out by Emperor Ning. It had been specially prepared for him to enter the palace as a witness. It was related to the matter of providing the poison. It was just that Qin Wushang never thought that it would not be Yin Shua who would confront him, rather, it was Yin Yan. He casually felt the interior furnishings of the carriage. Compared to his carriage, this was far more luxurious. Eastern Ling was wealthier than Western Qin. A carriage that was randomly selected to go out and pick someone up was better than the one that he, a prince of Western Qin, rode in. It was truly enviable. Qigong rode in the carriage with him and was soaked in sweat even though it was still winter. Seventh prince, be a little satisfied. Is it not enough that you toppled one of Eastern Ling's prime ministers? It's fortunate that your testimony proved to be vital and Emperor Ning did not assign any of the blame on you. Otherwise, adding on that previous matter of you going to steal military secrets from Marquis Gu's manor, I fear that we would not be able to return to Western Kuan. Qigong thought back to the earlier situation in the palace. He was both afraid and a little joyous. Though they had not succeeded in starting a war between the two countries, nor did they manage to obtain any useful military information, they were able to topple one of Eastern Ling's prime ministers. This could also be considered a good bounty. Don't worry. I already have an understanding of the way that Emperor Ning handles things. He doesn't dare do anything to us. As a ruler, this person is too indecisive and views harmony as most important. It's such a pity that Eastern Ling's great lands fell into the hands of such a mediocre ruler. His pupils darkened slightly. If not for Gu Huaijiang, our Western Kuan would have already crushed Eastern Ling's border under our iron heel, and this great piece of land would have become ours. Qigong said, "Seventh Prince, Eastern Ling has suddenly lost a prime minister, thus the court will definitely be in turmoil. Shouldn't we take advantage of this chance to do something? No, we should return to our country." Compared to Qigong's surprised delight, Kuan Wushang was rather disinterested and suddenly brought up returning to their country. Qigong nearly coughed up a mouthful of blood. This seventh prince really behaved strangely, antagonizing him at every turn. Who knew what exactly he was plotting? Seventh prince, we finally managed to topple a prime minister. Wouldn't leaving now be a waste? Ku Wushang glanced at him and earnestly said, "The prime minister was not tripped up by you, nor was he tripped up by this prince. He chose to fall on his own." Qigong did not understand. What does that mean? Kuan Wushang decided to simply make it clearer for him. The one who asked me for the poison was Yin Shuo. The one who wanted to kill Gu Shubai was also Yin Shuo. Have you still not figured it out? Yin Yan, for the sake of protecting his son, did not hesitate to give up his position as prime minister. He and Gu Huaijiang have been at odds for half of their lives, so how is it that he can willingly give up so easily now? Qigong came to a sudden realization and nodded, so Prime Minister Yin still has a successor. No, he does not interact much with the people in court. If not for his excellent work, he would not be able to maintain his position as Prime Minister. Who would take up the mantle as his successor? Kuan Wushang sneered and lifted the curtain to look outside. On this night, the street was illuminated by the lanterns that could be found all over. Such a beautiful night, I wonder if Yu Fu came out to look at the lanterns. He muttered to himself. Qigong could not hear him clearly and also brought his head closer to look out. "Seventh Prince, what did you say?" With a whoosh, Kuan Wushang let the curtain down, nearly dropping it on Qigong's head. "I said that you're stupid. Think about it a little. Yin Yan does not interact much with the people in court, but Yin Shuo interacts a great deal with people in court. I am certain that the successor to the position of Prime Minister is Yin Shuo. Yin Shuo has been schemed against by this prince. Do you think that his first action as the new Prime Minister won't be to go against us? Will he really become the Prime Minister? Then what are we still waiting for? Let's go back and pack our things tonight. There's no rush." Kuan Wushang suddenly shouted, "Stop the carriage." The carriage stopped, and he leaped out. Qigong anxiously shouted from behind him, "Seventh Prince, where are you going?" "I'm going to Marquis Gu's manor." "You go back and tidy up your things first." Kuan Wushang waved his hand without turning back. He moved nimbly and quickly disappeared into the crowd. Qigong let out a sigh and sat back down inside the carriage. "Let's go and quickly return to the post house. This official has been an envoy for a long time and must return. This is my first time having such a stirring experience as an envoy. Next time, even if this official is given 100 times more courage, I still would not dare to come and serve as an envoy with the seventh prince again." While the carriage headed toward the post house, Kuan Wushang arrived outside Marquis Gu's manor, and the guards outside looked in his direction. He had no choice but to retreat to a safe distance. Now, everyone in Marquis Gu's manor recognized him and would keep a close eye on him when they saw him. They would not even allow him to get close to the manor. Under normal circumstances, this would be fine, but he was about to leave Easternling. He did not know when he could see Yu Fu again. Leaving like this, he felt unreconciled. He stood and waited outside the manor, thinking that it would be great if Yu Fu happened to come out of the manor. But after waiting for so long that his hands and feet started to feel so cold that he could only retain some heat by rubbing his hands together, he still did not see anyone come out. He self-mockingly laughed. Since coming to Easternling, she has learned the ways of Easternling's women, very rarely going out. How could she happen to come out at a time like this? Even if she went out tonight to look at the lanterns, she probably left a long time ago. He glanced at the gate a couple more times to ensure that Yu Fu could not possibly walk out through the gate then left. Suddenly, he heard a familiar voice, Gu Xiang and Gu Yi, those damn brats, took Yu Fu out to see the lanterns and didn't bother to call me. In their eyes, only eldest brother exists. Have they forgotten about me, their second brother? Kuan Wushang moved to the side of the road, and Gu Jiugu rushed by his side on horseback. He squinted his eyes and looked in the direction that Gu Jiugu had gone. Over there were colorful lanterns. It was the direction of the main street. Swallowed a poison needle, don't hold it with your fingers like this. This wastes too much energy. You don't have much strength and need to choose a position that conserves energy. In the backyard of the western wing, a lazy little puppy was currently lazily laying in a bit of grass next to a pond. Listening to the man's soft and low voice, it enjoyed sweet dreams. It was the little puppy given to Yu Fu by Gu Wenqing. It could eat and sleep, and it was growing chubbier and chubbier. The name that Yu Fu chose for it was Pangzhou. There was a simple round target hanging in the hall, and Gu Shubai was currently leading Yu Fu in training with flying needles. Like this. Yu Fu was used to holding poison needles between her fingers. Suddenly asking her to change how she held the needles left her not knowing what to do. Gu Shubai could only lead her by the hand, gently squeezing her fingers together, like this, then straight out. Try it. He pointed at the target that was placed nearby. Yu Fu did as he instructed. Taking a deep breath, she took aim at the red center of the target and quickly let it fly. After this, she jogged over to the target. Even though the needle had not hit the center of the target, she saw that it was at least stuck in the target. Clapping her hands in joy, she hopped and skipped back. Last time, third brother taught you martial arts. Though you did not continue with it, you learned some breathing techniques. Remember to breathe with your dantian when throwing it, and you will be able to throw it even more accurately. He gently cheered her on, which made Yu Fu even more eager to learn. Really? Then I'll try it again. It might be that she was too eager, as she accidentally pricked herself on the tip of the needle. A bead of blood instantly appeared on the round tip of her finger. Oh no! The area that had been pricked by the needle immediately turned purple. Gu Shubai leaned over and quickly grabbed her hand. Without even thinking, he placed her finger inside his mouth. Eldest brother, he was, sucking out the poisoned blood for her. Yu Fu was stunned. Gu Shubai had already spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing that the blood coming out of her finger was red once more, he felt relieved. Eldest brother, this poison is one that I prepared. I have the antidote. She looked at him with her large eyes, feeling moved and a little at a loss from his subconscious actions. Gu Shubai paused, only just realizing that he might have been a little excessive. Yu Fu was an immortal practitioner of poison. She was not at all afraid of poison. He doubled down and said, medicine is also made up of poison. You were poisoned and would need to take medicine to deal with it. It's definitely not good for your health. My body is sturdy. It would be better to let me get poisoned and take the antidote. As he said this, he stood up. His lips were slightly purple, as he strode into the room. Yaolan, quickly go and fetch your young Miss antidote for me. Yu Fu stood back and watched him in a daze. After a moment, she suddenly began to laugh. His expression was so resolute, however, his ears were unreasonably red. They were the same color as a boiled crab. This was her first time seeing an embarrassed Gu Shubai. Sure enough, he was still good-looking. Yu Fu, I'll tell you a bit of news. You know. Ha! Eldest brother, why are your lips purple? Gu Xiang and Gu Yi had run over to the western wing. Initially, they had come looking for Yu Fu. Who knew that they would find Gu Shubai sitting at a table on his own, his lips looking a little purple. Eldest young sir, this is the antidote for young Miss Poison Needle. Yaolan noisily brought out a large chest. Opening it revealed all sorts of bottles and containers. There were some made of porcelain and some made of wood. There were some as large as bowls and some as small as wine cups. Yaolan accurately pulled out a round wooden canister and retrieved 2 pills of medicine, handing them to Gu Shubai. Oh my word, little Yu Fu has quite a few treasures. What are all of these? Gu Yi reached out to touch them but had his hand smacked away by Gu Xiang. Don't mess around. What would you do if you ended up poisoned like eldest brother? Eldest brother, how did you end up getting pricked by Yu Fu's poison needle? Gu Shubai did not want to answer. Letting out a gentle sigh, he wanted to avoid the topic with just that. Who knew that Yaolan would earnestly say, eldest young sir, quickly take it. Though this poison is not serious, it would not be good to drag things out. You ingested it orally, which is far more serious than if you had been pricked. Orally. Gu Yi hastily grabbed his mouth. Eldest brother, did you swallow the poison needle? This isn't any small matter. Let me take a look, quickly let me take a look. Gu Shubai, 5th brother, 6th brother, you two came. Yu Fu walked in from the back. Since she had not yet put away the poison needle in her hand, Gu Xiang and Gu Yi shrank back upon seeing her. Little Yu Fu, quickly put your little treasure away. Even with his amazing martial abilities, eldest brother has swallowed a needle. We don't dare touch one. Swallowed a needle. Yu Fu had a look of confusion, but before she could say anything, she heard Gu Shubai gently clear his throat. You two ran over here in a rush. What was it that you wanted to tell Yu Fu? In the end, Gu Xiang and Gu Yi were too simple-minded, being distracted by just that one comment. They happily began to report the good news that they heard. Just now, an official from the Board of Public Works came to the manor. They said that His Majesty specifically granted you use of the large boat that he uses to enjoy the West Lake. Didn't you say that you wanted to go and play at West Lake? His Majesty knows that you fell out of the boat and into the river, thus he specially granted you use of this large boat. Like this, you can run around all you like without falling into the water. Gu Shubai swallowed the 2 pills, and his lips slowly turned from purple back to pink. The poison must have already been dealt with. The Board of Public Works just had that boat built for His Majesty last year. Does that boat have a large golden dragon decoration? Gu Xiang said, that's right. That's the one. It's because it's the one that was just built that an official personally came to tell father. They said that boat is already docked on the shore of West Lake. We can go at any time. Little Yu Fu, when do you want to go? Yu Fu tilted her small head and thought for a bit. She had been wanting to go and see the sights of West Lake for quite some time, and she naturally wanted to go as soon as possible. But even more than that, she wanted. When will the head general have time? When elder brothers have time, how about we all go together? Gu quickly said, we all have free time and can go at any time. But father and eldest brother are rather busy. Eldest brother, when will you and father have time? Gu Shubai looked over at Yu Fu. Her eyes glittered while staring at him, her face full of expectation. He dotingly patted her head, I get it. I will go and ask father. Would Yu Fu like to go on a clear day or on a rainy day? After all, when it came to West Lake in the 6th month, the water glimmers beautifully on a sunny day, and the colors of the scenery are richer in the rain. Choosing a cloudy day, the members of Marquis Gu's manor mightily set out. Gu Huaijiang's status was noble, and even if he did not want to go out in a carriage, Yu Fu naturally needed to ride in one. Aside from this, Gu Shubai and the others all set out on horseback. Initially, this group was not particularly mighty, but quite a few uninvited guests tagged along. First, the second prince arrived with Princess Danyang in their carriages. They said that Princess Danyang also wished to go and see the lake, while the second prince had been unable to dissuade her and was dragged along. Following this, the eldest prince also arrived. He said that he had come to Marquis Gu's manor to train in archery. Who knew that they would be going out to play? It would not do to have the eldest prince go back just after arriving at the manor, thus they also brought him along. There was also a group of people who often accompanied the two princes when they were out. They were all relatives of the imperial family in the capital or the sons of prominent families. With all of these people gathered together, the group quickly grew many times bigger. The sidewalks were filled with civilians gathering to watch this scene unfold. While passing through the streets, there were even soldiers who held up a rope to ensure that the civilians on the sidewalks did not bump into the procession. However, the civilians were very at ease. They just shouted out about General Gu and opened up a path. Have you heard? Today, General Gu is taking his daughter to West Lake to see the sights. Who knows what this young miss looks like? I've heard that she is extremely beautiful and all who see her love her. Lord Marquis dotes on her to no end. That's not all. Even His Majesty personally granted her use of the imperial boat just to let her play. The second prince raised the curtain slightly and looked outside, his face unexpressive. Lord Marquis Gu. He really is loved by the people. This sort of love, not to mention the eldest prince not receiving this much love, but even their father emperor might not be able to compete. The boat granted by the imperial family was docked at the White Embankment. Getting out of the carriages and dismounting their horses, everyone looked over at the boat and saw that there was a large patch of shadow at the front of the ship. Yu Fu was finally able to understand what Gu Xiang was saying. She could run around on this ship without any need to worry about falling into the water because the deck had tall and sturdy railings that would not even allow a drop of water to leak through. The most dazzling feature was the golden dragon carving at the prow. It was lifelike and resembled a dragon that had poked its head out of the water. It was a truly astonishing sight. Go and fetch a tarp to cover up the golden dragon. That's something that only His Majesty can display when out and about. Gu Huaijiang gave this order to Qi Zhou, and the latter nimbly began to direct the workers. Very quickly, the lifelike golden dragon was tightly covered up. Seeing him pay such close attention to etiquette, the second prince stepped forward with a smile. Uncle Gu, Father Emperor often said that you have made many great contributions yet refused to be rewarded. It's because of this that the imperial boat was granted for Yu Fu to play. It is his way of showing his affection. You are being too formal. The eldest prince had fallen a step behind, and everything had already been said by the second prince. He simply expressed his agreement, then greeted Yu Fu. Brother Yi Zhao. On today's trip out, Yu Fu was clearly in a very good mood. When calling out to people, she was especially sweet. Gu Huaijiang looked down with a kind smile, then looked back up at the second prince. He had always acted in this way. He followed the reasoning that being close to a ruler was like being close to a tiger. Regardless of how much Emperor Ning trusted and loved him, he could not act too proudly and give him a reason to feel suspicious or envious. That is what was said, but Yu Fu is still just a young child. She cannot bear His Majesty's kindness. Eldest prince, second prince, please dash. He waved to Yu Fu and brought her to his side, allowing the eldest prince and the second prince to board first before following behind them. On the boat, Yu Fu looked all around. Under the cloudy sky, the mist-covered waters of West Lake extended into the distance. Its surface was covered in lotus leaves. She was absolutely elated. Head General, West Lake is really beautiful. She ran over to the railing and looked down. The clear water of the lake was pushed aside, creating ripples on the surface. The nearby lotus leaves rose and fell with the waves as if a graceful fairy was about to appear from within the flowers. Everyone followed her over to the railing. They saw her grab a hold of the railing and push herself onto her tiptoes, struggling to poke her head over. This looked exactly like when a piglet was waiting for food to be delivered. Gu Huaijiang was amused by this and began to laugh. The eldest prince and the others seemed to figure out what he was laughing over and could not stop themselves from laughing along. Only the second prince stepped forward. Yu Fu, you are too short. How about I pick you up to take a look? Everyone froze, feeling that the second prince's words were a little unexpected. He had only met Yu Fu once. They were not familiar, yet he said that he would pick her up to look at West Lake. Moreover, males and females were different. No matter how young Yu Fu was, she was still a girl. How could she be picked up so casually by an unfamiliar male? Seeing the looks of doubt on everyone's faces, the second prince realized his impropriety and hastily tried to remedy the situation. I noticed that Yu Fu was struggling with standing on her toes and did not think things through properly. This boat should have a shorter chair. Bring one out for Yu Fu to stand on. Before he finished speaking, Qi Zhou was already walking out with a small stool. It was the perfect height for Yu Fu to stand on. The eldest prince stood to the side and watched in silence, sneering in secret. Second eldest saw that he and Yu Fu got along well and was feeling anxious. Princess Danyang smiled and said, "It's no wonder second brother would feel worried from seeing Yu Fu struggle. I also like sister Yu Fu to no end. Father Emperor is also the same." Before even meeting sister Yu Fu, he heard that she wanted to see the sights of West Lake and decided to grant the use of the imperial boat. Even as his daughter, I have not been given this sort of treatment. She half-jokingly and half-seriously said this jealous statement. Seeing Gu Shubai, Gu Jiugu, and the others standing next to Yu Fu, she worried that they would notice something strange about her expression, and her feelings of jealousy intensified by a bit. You're actually jealous of Yu Fu. Father favors Uncle Gu, so it's natural that he would also dote on the people that Uncle Gu loves. But it must be said that we are all mooching off of Yu Fu. It's only because of her that we can come on the imperial boat to enjoy West Lake. The second prince picked up on the conversation. Yu Fu heard her name mentioned, but she pretended to not notice and continued to look at the sights of the lake. Eldest brother, look. What is that? She tried her best to reach out her hand and pointed at something in the distance. It was actually a golden carp that had leaped out. What? Where is it? When Gu Xiang and Gu Yi looked over, the carp had already landed back in the water. All that remained were the ripples in the water. Ha, it's already fallen back into the water. None of you saw it. Yu Fu was a little disheartened. She had seen something that she liked but had nobody to share it with. It was really dispiriting. Gu Shubai covered his mouth and smiled, his eyes glimmering slightly. I saw it. It was a large golden carp. It was really beautiful. Yu Fu instantly rejoiced, right, that's the one. It's a good thing that eldest brother saw it. Gui snorted with dissatisfaction. Who told you to call out to eldest brother first? If you called out to me first, I would definitely have been able to see it. If you don't believe it, let's go again. Food and drinks have been prepared in the cabin. If everyone is tired from the sightseeing, go inside to rest a little. Shubai, take good care of Yu Fu. Don't let her fall into the water. After standing on the deck and observing for a long time, Gu Huaijiang spoke up, then entered the cabin first. He left the space to the group of younger people, but this caused the eldest prince and the second prince to come up with their own ideas. The two exchanged a glance expressing tacit understanding. The second prince looked over at Yu Fu's situation, as the brother and sister were currently chatting and laughing. I'm getting a little tired from standing around and will be going into the cabin first. Danyang, you keep Yu Fu company. You are both girls and will definitely have more to talk about with her. After saying this, he followed Gu Huaijiang and left this scene to Princess Danyang. Naturally, Princess Danyang understood his intentions. Between the two siblings, one would go and get close with Marquis Gu, and one would get close to Yu Fu. They would not miss out on either side. The eldest prince paused for a moment. Seeing the second prince hastily depart, he ended up turning around. His gaze landed on Yu Fu. Being surrounded by Gu Shubai and his brothers, she was the shortest and had the sweetest smile. Even the usually stoic Gu Hanemo had the faintest of smiles. She was like a moon surrounded by stars, being treated like a treasure by the brothers of the Gu family. This was not only limited to the brothers. There was also Gu Huaijiang. He was the most important one. He suddenly smiled. With a well-thought-out plan in mind, he walked toward Yu Fu. What are you guys laughing about? Tell me about it too. It's not hot out today, but it's a pity that it isn't raining. In the rain, the scenery at West Lake becomes even prettier. Gu Jogu was someone who frequented various sightseeing spots, and there was not a single one in Linen that he had not visited. Naturally, he had a better understanding of how to enjoy these things. Who knows, maybe it will rain come nighttime. Let's wait around until nightfall. Maybe it will rain at that time. Yu Fu casually said this, and everyone continued to chat. It would be great if it could rain when you wanted it to rain. This year has seen less rainwater, and there are fears that we will need to endure a drought. When that time comes, who knows how many fields will be barren and how many families will become destitute. The eldest prince could not help but sigh. Inside the cabin, the second prince was also chatting with Gu Huaijiang about this matter. Father Emperor is very worried. There was not much rain last year, but who knew that this year would be even worse? Uncle Gu, how do you think this matter should be handled? Gu Huaijiang casually held a cup of wine. His eyes glimmered while watching Yu Fu joyously laugh through the porthole. Hearing the second prince suddenly say this, his hand froze. He then slowly lowered the cup. Is second prince asking for advice on how to run the country? The second prince was stunned. Faced with his dignified bearing, he did not dare to lie and just nodded. Father Emperor said that you were a subject who helped to provide the country with peace and stability. He told us to come and ask you for advice more often. Does Uncle Gu not wish to teach me? Gu Huaijiang raised his cup with a smile in his direction, and the second prince hastily returned the gesture. The two then took a sip. That's just His Majesty showing his favor. I am just a normal soldier. How could I possibly have any understanding of providing a country with peace and stability? I can only understand some of the writings in military books and know about the matters on the battlefield. As for running a country, second prince should ask someone else. He graciously declined the second prince's request. The second prince did not get upset. He knew that Gu Huaijiang had a high status and was always careful around others. He would not carelessly show his support for any prince. He could not be impatient with things as he had been earlier with saying that he would pick Yu Fu up. Moving to advance quickly might actually have the opposite effect. As such, he gave up on the topic and followed Gu Huaijiang's gaze out of the porthole. Seeing Princess Danyang currently stand next to Gu Shubai, the two were slowly standing closer and closer. Uncle Gu, look. Danyang is still the same as when she was little. She just likes being together with your eldest. Now that the two of them are older, she is still so lacking in trying to avoid situations that could be seen as improper. He verbally complained about Princess Danyang being improper, but Gu Huaijiang was able to understand that he was trying to bring up the matter of Princess Danyang liking Gu Shubai. Gu Huaijiang smiled and said, Princess is no longer little. She is already at an age where she should get married. She should indeed avoid those situations. I will tell Shubai and them that they should have a sense of propriety with girls. After all, the second prince's heart chilled. He never thought that Gu Huaijiang would refuse this matter so resolutely. For a while, he did not know how to respond. After all, the family did not have any female members previously, but now, there is Yu Fu. In another 2 or 3 years, she will also grow up. She should learn a little earlier to avoid doing things that will arouse suspicions. So he was talking about Yu Fu. The second prince let out a sigh of relief. Then looking at Gu Huaijiang's eyes, he felt that this was not right. What he said was not limited to Yu Fu alone. Outside the porthole, Gu Shubai suddenly walked over to Yu Fu's side and picked her up. At the same time, he created some distance between himself and Princess Danyang. Your feet must be getting sore from standing for so long, right? Let's go inside to sit for a while. Eldest brother, you guys can go and sit inside. I want to sit outside. She had not had enough of the sights. Gu Shubai helplessly looked over at the eldest prince, and the latter was very accommodating towards Yu Fu, giving the order, go and bring out some chairs. We'll sit on the deck to enjoy the scenery. Is the field of view not greater than it would be inside? These words were in line with what Yu Fu desired, and she cheerfully said, Brother Yizhao is right. We can go inside when it starts raining later. We can enjoy the rainy scenery with the general. This was the second time that Yu Fu had brought up something along the lines of it raining later in the day. Everyone merely thought that she was just joking, but the eldest prince had always been thorough and asked her a question. Yu Fu, do you really feel like it will rain later? After saying this, he raised his head to look at the sky. The sky was gray, but it was not the kind of gray that came with rain. The air also did not feel particularly humid. Eldest prince, it's just a child's joke. Why are you taking it so seriously? The young men who were accompanying the eldest prince began to laugh. Eldest prince likes young Miss Yu Fu. That's why he feels that everything she says is reasonable. Since these people followed the eldest prince, they were naturally able to see how much he favored Yu Fu. This was why they were very respectful towards Yu Fu. This made Gu Shubai and the others feel very at ease. Only Princess Danyang's expression revealed any displeasure. She felt that Gu Shubai had deliberately distanced himself from her. As for everyone present, regardless of whether it was the sons of Marquis Gu's manor or the young men accompanying the eldest prince, they were all gathered around Yu Fu. She, as a dignified princess, was left to the side on her own. How could she be asked to tolerate this? That's right, Sister Yu Fu is a good girl. A young child's jokes cannot be taken seriously. Eldest brother, you're a grown man. Why bother with following up on this joke? It's a little too undignified. She carried herself with the bearing of a princess. Saying this so naturally, everyone's focus returned to her. Gu Shubai suddenly recalled something that Yu Fu had previously said. The one thing that she hated the most was being called a young child. Danyang, why are you looking down on Yu Fu again? Though she is young, she is not a child who will speak nonsense. Yu Fu, can you tell Brother Yizhao why you feel that it will rain later? Yu Fu liked this part of the eldest prince. It was because he respected her and did not think of her as a young child. The first time that the two met, he had squatted down slightly to speak with her. That was a sight that Yu Fu would always remember. Of course, I can. Yu Fu pointed at a mountain in the distance, and everyone looked in that direction. She was pointing in the direction of Lei Feng Pagoda. Look at the foot of the mountain. The swallows are flying very low because the bugs that they eat fly very low. When the bugs' wings make contact with the water vapor in the air, it adds quite a bit of weight to the bugs. However, it's something that we wouldn't even notice. Also, eldest brother, what did we just see? Gu Shubai thought for a bit. Are you talking about the golden carp leaping out of the water? That's right. The large carp leaped out of the water because there is less air underwater on a rainy day. It needs to leap out to get air. That's why it will definitely rain later. Let's just wait to see the rainy scenery of West Lake. Yu Fu's words left everyone stunned. All of the things that she had mentioned, the swallows flying low and the carp leaping out of the water, were things that others had not noticed. The eldest prince slightly raised an eyebrow, thinking to himself that if it really did rain today, Emperor Ning's extremely dire situation would be resolved. He would definitely be very happy. Yu Fu, who told you about these things? If it really did end up raining, he would definitely need to remember what Yu Fu had said. Like this, they would be able to know when it will rain before it happens. Yu Fu took no precautions and said in front of everyone, "It was my master who taught me. Master has a white doll that is hung below the eaves. He said that if the doll has a crying face, it means that it will rain. If it has a smiling face, it will be a sunny day." Everyone became even more incredulous. Hey, Yu Fu, didn't your master say to not tell people about his matters? Be careful if the medical god finds out about this, he might no longer want you as his disciple. Gu Jiugu interjected at an appropriate time, and the eldest prince also understood the medical god's name, thus he gave up on asking any further questions. A sudden gust of wind blew past, and the large boat gently swayed. The eldest prince reached out a hand in Yu Fu's direction. Princess Danyang was shocked. Fearing that Yu Fu would begin to favor the eldest prince, resulting in the members of Marquis Gu's manor following suit, she also hastily reached out a hand. Sister Yu Fu, come and hold my hand. Be careful not to fall. Two hands appeared in front of her. One was fair and plump, and the other had a palm that was a little rough. One was a prince and the other was a princess, and neither should be offended. Gu Wenqing immediately recognized this. Just as he was about to speak up and bring her to his side, he saw her reach out and place her hand in the eldest prince's palm. I am worried that I will drag Sister Danyang down with me. Sister Diener, quickly go and support her. Yu Fu looked at Princess Danyang with a look of concern. In the same breath, she had called the two of them sister, but the two felt drastically differently. The one referred to as Sister Diener was the palace maid who had peeled some grapes for her. At this moment, her face was filled with unease. Princess Danyang turned around then shot a glare at her from an angle that nobody could see. Sister. Her ass. The eldest prince held her soft and tender little hand. Almost without hesitation, she had placed her hand in his, and this outcome warmed his heart. Without noticing, he tightly held her hand. It was as if he was carefully holding a soft bundle in his hand. Rumbling after the muffled sound of thunder rang out, heavy rain began to descend without any warning. Among those seated on the deck, there were some with foresight. They had gone and entered the cabin first, and not a drop of rain landed on them. Gu Shubai held a cloak over Yufu's head and brought her into the cabin first. Princess Danyang, however, had been left behind. She closely watched Gu Shubai's actions and felt increasingly dissatisfied with his concern for Yufu. She was just a girl with an unclear origin. What proper younger sister could she be considered? Was she worth protecting like this? She angrily stomped her foot and was among the last to enter the cabin. "It's raining." The second prince suddenly stood up from his seat. Looking at the people squeeze into the cabin, he poked his head out of a porthole in shock, and chilly drops of rain hit him in the face. "It's raining, look. It's really raining. This is great. Father Emperor won't need to worry so much about it." He was overly joyous, and even Princess Danyang furrowed her brow, trying to give him a look. However, he did not notice. After rejoicing for quite some time, he found that the others were not as emotional. He was the only one shouting and jumping for joy. As a result, he looked at everyone in embarrassment. "Second brother, we already knew that it would rain. While we were outside, Yufu told us quite a bit and that it would definitely rain." Princess Danyang said this without a shred of kindness. She had not remembered any of the explanations provided by Yufu. She was simply thinking that she would definitely need to have a good laugh at her if it did not rain. This would serve as retribution for the time that Gu Yi had laughed at her. Who knew that it really would rain? Her hopes had completely fallen flat. "Our Yufu really is amazing. Quickly come and tell me. What exactly happened?" Gu Huaijiang smiled and waved to her, his expression doting and proud. It was as though only Yufu was his daughter, and 6 boys had simply been picked up. It rained for a full 2 hours, and the sky became dark. Everyone ate dinner together inside the cabin. The meal consisted of Chinese perch fished from West Lake, lotus roots, water chestnuts, and a variety of similar things. The meal was simple yet refined and appropriate. Riding a boat around West Lake and eating the fish from the water. Today, I really benefited from Head General's glory and mingled with many cultured people. The second prince did not forget to continue kissing ass during the meal. Yufu thought to herself what Gu Huaijiang simply said, "Second prince is joking. If someone is being benefited from, it would be Yufu." After all, the boat was granted by His Majesty for Yufu's enjoyment. It was said to have been granted for Yufu, but if it was not for Gu Huaijiang, would Emperor Ning have been so generous? The second prince awkwardly smiled, then suddenly heard the sound of music accompanied by singing. It was so beautiful that it was as if it had come from the highest level of heaven, yet it also felt so close that it was within reach. It was clear that everyone had heard this sound. Today, the imperial boat cruised around West Lake. There shouldn't be any other boats that would dare to get close. Could it be that the music is coming from the shore? Gu Jiugu listened carefully for quite some time, then suddenly furrowed his brow. A fierce look appeared in his eyes. This look was very rarely seen on his face, and Gu Shubai secretly pulled him to the side and quietly asked, "What's going on?" "It seems to be the sound of Yao Yu's pipe. She should not be here." Yao Yu. Gu Shubai felt that this name was familiar. He knew without even thinking about it. It was definitely one of his close female friends. "I heard that His Majesty brought up the matter of our marriages in a talk with Father. At our age, there should be quite a few people eyeing the spot at our side. Thinking about it, a word must have gotten around the capital, and the people on your side could no longer sit still." This was not the first time that Gu Jiugu had experienced this sort of thing. He had previously encountered a girl who was selling herself to afford a funeral for her father. After receiving 20 taels of silver from Gu Jiogu, she insisted on returning to the manor with Gu Jiogu. She even ditched her own father's corpse on the side of the road. All that remained in her mind was Gu Jiogu. She is not that sort of person. If she did not have any sense of propriety, I would not use my name to protect her. In the arena of love, there was not a single person in the capital that did not know that she, Yao Yu, belonged to second young Sir Gu. Nobody dared to offend her. She also knew what was proper and never used this power to bully others. She had never done anything that would make Gu Jiogu unhappy. But today, why would she be here? Second brother, do you still remember what mother once said? Gu Jiogu suddenly looked up. Gu Shubai was holding a cup of wine and helplessly shaking his head. Mother said that your phoenix eyes can also be called peach blossom eyes. This meant that you were destined to provoke a peach blossom debt. A beauty as beautiful as flowers is as distant as the clouds above. High above is the lofty blue sky, and below is the rippling water. The graceful music played across the rippling water and reached the large boat, gradually getting closer. The music sounded aggrieved and plaintive. It seemed as if there was a girl in love pining for her husband who was far away while melancholic tears streamed down her face. Hearing this song at this particular time really makes me feel a chill. Princess Danyang felt her own arms. One could imagine that the fair skin under her wide sleeves was now covered in goosebumps. Gui glanced at her and laughed, thinking about it. The lake must have gotten a bit cooler from the rain. It's just a song. How could it possibly have that much of an effect? This song is called Longing. I long for you, but you remain in Chang'an. I long for you, so much so that it tortures my heart. It is indeed a very bitter song. You are young and have an optimistic personality. You're at an age where you do not know anxiety and naturally cannot understand the feelings being described. The eldest prince gave him an explanation and happened to notice that Gu Jiogu's expression began to show some discontent. It seemed as though something had happened. Not long later, they saw Qi Zhou hastily rush over under an umbrella, reporting to Gu Huaijiang, Lord Marquis, there is a musician riding a boat on the lake while playing a pipa. Because she knows the second young sir, nobody dares to stop her. A musician who knows Gu Jiogu is drawing closer on a rainy day at such a late time. What could they be aiming for? Those present were all experienced and immediately realized the dubiousness of the situation, as they looked at Gu Jiogu with mocking gazes. That person is second young Sir Gu's musician. It wouldn't be Yao Yu, right? There were many young men accompanying the group, and they quickly thought of Yao Yu. In a slightly frivolous tone, they began to discuss this. Musicians were of a lower class. Like actors, they were not shown any respect by others. Even if they made a living as performers and did not sell their bodies, in the eyes of others, this was merely something that would increase their asking price. Gu Jiogu furrowed his brow but did not react. He was waiting for Gu Huaijiang to speak. Gu Huaijiang cast a dignified glance in his direction and knew that this girl called Yao Yu was not one that he had arranged for. He knew Gu Jiogu's personality. He enjoyed wine and happiness. It was inevitable that he would linger around the romantic scene. But he had never done anything that was improper. He also would not privately go out without returning home at night, nor would he visit any prostitutes. Knowing this, Gu Huaijiang just let things be. But today, there were two princes, a princess, and the sons of many noble families along with them. In this sort of a situation, bringing Gu Jiogu and the musician together would inevitably sound quite bad if word got out. He furrowed his brow and pondered for a while. Head General, this song is really nice. With the arrival of night and the drizzle of rain, the scenery is a hazy blur. Now that it is accompanied with a song coming from the distance, it is truly too fitting. Yu-Fu suddenly began to clap. It seemed that she truly liked this song. Everyone knew that she liked the scenery of Westlake. Though she was young, she knew how to appreciate it, thus they did not find her remark to be out of place. Since Yu-Fu likes it, Uncle Gu, how about not chasing away the girl playing this song? The eldest prince spoke up in a timely fashion. Looking at Gu Huaijiang with a smile, he then turned to face everyone else. Yu-Fu and I are thinking similarly. Before us, we have wine and beautiful scenery. If there was no music, it would truly be a pity. Just let her continue singing at this distance. What does everyone else think? The eldest prince had already spoken, so the people who wished to mock Gu Jiugu did not dare say anything else. They could only smile and agree. Right, young Miss Yu-Fu and the eldest prince have good taste, while we are less sophisticated. The second prince snorted quietly with dissatisfaction, and he subconsciously wanted to rebuke any suggestion brought up by the eldest prince. The song is indeed a nice song, but the girl is a musician. Her origins are unclear. Just allowing her to linger near the imperial boat, what if she has assassins hiding on her boat? How could that possibly be handled? The boat was filled with members of the imperial family and people from noble families. Not the slightest thing could afford to go wrong. Once these words came out, the atmosphere that had just calmed down instantly became tense once more. Second prince, don't worry. I have met this girl before and know her. I will go and talk with her. I don't think that anything will happen. After saying this, he looked over at Yu-Fu. Yu-Fu, what sort of song do you like? While I am there, I will tell her to play it for you. Second brother, the head general likes listening to Ambush from 10 Sides. Yu-Fu winked at him, and the latter knowingly smiled before exiting the cabin. Gu Huaijiang joyously rested his chin in his hand. While patted Yu-Fu's head, his eyes flaunted the fact that he had such a filial daughter. Everyone had become accustomed to seeing his dignified and solemn appearance in court, thus this sight was truly shocking. Lord Marquis Gu was doting on his daughter. It truly was not just some idle chatter. The second prince's heart dropped and suddenly felt as though he had made a fatal mistake. First, he should not have gone against what the eldest prince had said and tried to look for trouble. That musician was familiar with Gu Jiugu, and his own remarks might make the members of Marquis Gu's manor feel as if he was trying to have Gu Jiugu make a fool of himself. More importantly, his gaze moved in the direction of the eldest prince, and the latter was looking at Yu-Fu with a smile. It was as if he was her older brother. Seemingly noticing the second prince's resentful stare, he casually turned his head and revealed a victorious smile. He had guessed right. In Marquis Gu's manor, the one that had the most sway with Gu Huaijiang was not the multi-talented Gu Shubai, nor was it comedic Gu Yi. It was Yu-Fu. She was the only one who could sway Gu Huaijiang's thoughts. She could even sway the thoughts of the manor's young sirs. In the misty drizzle, there was a finely painted boat on the lake that was drifting along with the wind. Inside the boat's cabin, there was a lithe and graceful girl wearing a gauze garment. Her slender fingers were curled around the pipa while playing it. I long for you, but you remain in Chang'an. I long for you, so much so that it tortures my heart. Her thoughts were within grasp but also as far away as the edge of the world. Miss, the second young sir has come. The old captain of the boat had often provided her with a boat to ride, and he had become familiar with Gu Jiugu a long time ago. He immediately recognized the young man that was standing next to the railing of the imperial boat as Gu Jiugu. Inside the cabin, the girl's playing faltered. Following this, the boat gently swayed a couple of times, as Gu Jiugu had exercised his qigong and stably landed outside the cabin. Yao you, we need to talk. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.